Good afternoon, good afternoon. PF Cutters, good afternoon to you. Christopher Coffey, good afternoon. Gabriel Philip, greetings. Horace Sharpness, Margaret Thomas, good afternoon. June Austin, Christopher Sylvester, Arlene Lewis, Wazid, greetings. Hi, Carol. Yes, Carol, yeah, you're early today. Hi, Diane. And to the others who are on, Sarah Richards, good afternoon. Ria Edwards, Helen Faria, Michelle Nero, good afternoon to you. Wilbos. Wilbos is joining us all the way from Virginia. Greetings. Janice Batiste, Elijah Flores, Jennifer Ashby Okoli. Hi, Jennifer. Juju Bernard. I saw Jennifer was yesterday up at the Savannah culmination of the Emancipation Procession. Kathy Ann Best, Deborah Duranty, Ruth Trude, Mikel, good afternoon, Mr. Music Mana, Roland Nelson, Marlene Pantin, Shelton Lewis. Right, let me jump on one time. I'm already late, but the Arima Borough Corporation had Thanksgiving, um, their Thanksgiving church service this morning at Bethel. So myself and the political leader were there as the MPs or the parliamentary representatives for the two constituencies that are serviced by the Arima Borough Corporation. 5 of the 7 councillors serve Malama Mausika. So I had to perform my duties there, and then I have something else to do in a couple of hours. So let me see how quickly we can run through this. Yet another week of Never a Dull Moment in sweet Trinidad and Tobago. And this week, of course, well, this past week on was no different. And I told you all last week, Sunday, that the main reason why this, well, I believe the government had a hand in the leak of that audio recording. I told you all there's 2 reasons, well, 2 things they wanted you all to hear in that recording. For specific reasons, obviously, it was to change the conversation coming out of the embarrassment that this government has faced with this whole PDO business involving Dominic and Genevieve Hadid and Star Sabga. Of course, Miss Sabga was finally released, albeit under house arrest, having spent a few extra days in detention after the PDOs were pulled for Dominic and Genevieve. And when the court would have ordered house arrest, it was told to us that the government intended to appeal. They were given a time period to appeal, and well, we saw how that went. Now, Star Sabga is a star. People are saying that the sentiments that she expressed in that recording reflects the feelings of many, many citizens in Trinidad and Tobago, even some of them including UNC supporters as well. And as I told you all, government was seeing that some of their own supporters were revolting in respect to that whole arrangement, and they needed something to kind of pull it back. And so that we found that recording was leaked, and the very 2 things that I told you, their supporters, the UNC supporters, would latch on to and change the narrative, change the national discourse was Star Sabga's reference to Kamla Prasad Bisesa, and also the statement made by Genevieve Hadid that they support the PNM. So said, so done. So all of last week, the conversation was about race relations and who responsible for blowing the racial dog whistle, and is the PNM responsible for that, and the PNM on the back foot, and the PNM against the rope, and yeah, because the PNM leaked the recording, right? Yeah, the PNM did that. When you look at all the majority of comments that I have seen on social media, and I'm sure many of you all have seen as well, with respect to the racial invective has been coming from the UNC. Screenshots and their supporters have become a little more emboldened now in the use of the N-word, particularly coming from their political leader who feels inclined, well, all of a sudden it's no longer offensive to use the word coolie. Because she came to the parliament and referred to herself in that, using that term, and it was okay, there was no problem with it. But somebody else called her that, and she vexed. And you know how the UNC operates? We sick, Massa you sick, we sick. If Kamala vex, them vex. If she not vex, so they just sit around and wait for their cue, so they will know when their cult leader is vexed, when she upset. If she says nothing, they are not offended. But they know what, as I said, they know why they leaked that recording. And then we had the commissioner of police saying, well, he has to launch an investigation to determine the authenticity of the recording, whether it is genuine, it is authentic or not, among other things. Commissioner Guevara, there's no need for you to waste resources to determine whether or not the recording is authentic. We know it is authentic because both your bosses, their direct boss and his boss have both confirmed the authenticity of that, right? The Minister of Homeland Security was quick to jump out and say the leak did not originate with the TTPS. So he knows. So he wouldn't call it a leak. It can't leak if it's not genuine. If it's not genuine, it's not authentic, then it can't leak it. Then if it's fake, it's not a leak. All right? So the fact that he says, Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, said that the leak did not originate with the TTPS tells you it's authentic. And then your Prime Minister has been quoting liberally from some of the things that was said in that recording in response to Dr. Rowley referring to him to a post he put out on Facebook few days ago, referring to him as a Facebook troll and making, again, the use of the word coolie, referring to herself as that. Proudly so, unashamedly so, much to the delight of her supporters, because apparently they get them license now to use the other word. And I've seen some really, really racist comments on social media coming from some of these UNC supporters. Right. So, yes, now let me get this. Yes, do this down here. So, let me get this here. Right. I'm looking for something in particular. And let me see if I get this here. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just to touch on a little bit on what had Mrs. Prasad Biswas so unnerved. 5 days ago, Dr. Roy put out a post. Surprise, surprise, the Prime Minister thought that bigotry and racist remarks were reserved only for her use. When she called me an Oreo in the service of the 1%, what did she think that was? Her birthright? For the last month, this country has seen her government in all its nakedness being spiteful, vindictive, and incompetent in the extreme. It took an embarrassing collapse at the Privy Council to slow them down, even as they push back against the reasoning of our Courts of Appeal. Now that the population has been made aware of the recklessness of this administration, which is hiding under a state of emergency in order to abuse the machinery of state as they try to settle personal and political scores against citizens, one would expect that a government so exposed and disgraced would humble itself as the people directly responsible are held to account. Instead, we have the absentee Prime Minister trying from home to continue to fool the population about waiting on foreign jurisdictions. What does the Prime Minister say? That she and her government for 1 whole month have been on the attack without evidence and could not lay a charge or defend their position of jailing people without charge in our country, that this fiasco is now left to some unnamed foreign jurisdiction. He goes on to say the government must end the state of emergency now. The Prime Minister must fire the Minister of Homeland Security and the Attorney General if she harbors any hope of restoring any respect from the right-thinking citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And the statement that the US government is now helping TNT in the fight against crime is downright foolishness. Stop wasting my taxes on lawyers who are laughing at a foolish government that is enriching them while misleading the taxpayers. So said Dr. Rowley. You see this here. See that, right? I think I saved it. So 1 second, let me just repeat this. Mrs. Prasad Bisessa's response to that was, Facebook troll Rowley failed to protect this country and is now angry, quoting her here, word for word, that a stinking coolie, as his supporters call me, is doing the job he never cared to do. The words of your Prime Minister, Kamla Prasad Bisessa. So as somebody told me yesterday, they said they prefer Kamla 1.0 because 2.0 is not it. Nah. Something wrong with 2.0. This woman just continues to say things with gay abandon as if, she couldn't care less what anybody says. She couldn't care if anybody criticizes what she says. And it just shows that she's emulating or the style of her mentor up north. Just say whatever it is you want, don't put water in your mouth. The only thing that she has left to do is to use the F word. Just make a statement or come in parliament or somewhere and just use the F word as if it's, nothing wrong with that time. Call that judge. As up north has done on more than one occasion. And she could do that, or she believes that she could do that, simply because the usual critics, or the men and women of letters, to borrow a term from former President Anthony Carmona, who every time Dr. Rowley said something, if they felt offended, or if he said something with a particular tone, he was a little too rough, or he said it too loudly, or he was a little too harsh, they were quick to give commentary to the media. They were quick to pen a letter to the editor, or submit a letter as an opinion in the newspaper to criticize Dr. Rowley. But we've not seen too much of that in the last 15 months because Mrs. Prasad Bisessa has found a very ingenious way to silence the critics. How? You give a few of them, and the prominent critics that is, give a few of them a little crumb, give them a little position somewhere on a state board or something like that, and fool the others into believing that they will get something too. So while they're holding out hope for an ambassadorship, while they're holding out hope for being appointed to some state board, one of the many state boards that are yet to be constituted, the board that I once sat on, the board of the National Trust, is still without a full board, right? All they've had is are the elected members, but the appointed members, the 5 members also, or the 6 members who are appointed by cabinet, 5, and then 1 from the Tobago House of Assembly, they are yet to be appointed 15 months later. And the critical work that is done by the National Trust, to some extent, is being stymied in the absence of a full board. Because I recall when I was there, whenever we had to make major decisions, and the National Trust spends a lot of money in developing Nelson Island and developing Banwari Trace, and a lot of the other work that we do, the archaeological work that we do, that they do. I could say we because I'm a member of the National Trust. All of these things are in abeyance. In fact, the last AGM that the National Trust had was in April last year. And it was a good thing that we did, right? Because we saw the election coming, the general election. We didn't know what the outcome was going to be. But we said just in case, and the whole board came together and we said, right, we were going to have the AGM. Normally it would have been held in November, but good sense prevailed. We were able to get our audited financials done, and we were able to have the AGM last day in April. In the absence of a full board, no AGM, and soon the tenure of some of the elected members will also run out. So I don't know if it is the government is having a challenge finding qualified and competent people to serve on this board, or maybe people just don't want it because they don't think it's a prestigious enough board. Whatever the reason, you still have a number of boards like that, and boards that were already constituted are hemorrhaging directors. We saw 2 persons have already resigned from TSTT, and it is my understanding there are some other boards or persons have left as well. And it's demonstrative of the incompetence of this government, right? Because when you just scraping the bottom of the barrel, I just putting everybody and the dog as a director, they have no experience whatsoever serving on a board. They have no background whatsoever in terms of what this board does. And so there are many of them, or these directors are just sitting there as rubber stamps. Every month they're collecting a director's stipend, and they're good with that. Because so many of them, the director's stipend is more than what their salary was wherever they were working. And so they're just happy there's extra money they're collecting. And every month you have one board meeting and they go and they sit and they laugh, ha ha, and they eat and drink at the expense of the entity, your taxpayers' money, and then they go home. And you probably have one or two persons making the decisions, the chairman, assuming that he or she is competent, the deputy chairman, and basically the executive management of the organization. But when you have these men and women of letters sitting in the wings and hoping they get a call from the office of the prime minister or whichever minister or ministry to tell them that they have been selected to serve, and the call is to find out if they're interested, you know, nothing to say. Be quiet. So Mrs. Prasad Bisasa could make a statement like that, referring to Dr. Rowley as a Facebook troll. This is a prime minister, you know. This is not some bald-headed, low-life, drunkard senator who is now a minister in a ministry. No. This is the prime minister who is the head of government and who is expected to carry out, to exercise a certain level of decorum. None of that. So she goes about saying things like this, and it's quite okay. But if Keith Rowley, while he was prime minister, had said something like that, well, boy, all hell break loose. We would have heard from the usual suspects. We would have heard from Ralph Maraj, Martin Daly, Hamid Ghani, Vishnu Raghunath, Linda Capildeo would have write a letter in the Express already, but she seems to have vanished into thin air. And a few others. Would have, the media would have already contacted them. We would have heard from Shane Mohammed, Dr. Shane Mohammed, who's always available. I don't know what is his profession, but he's always available to give the media comment. We would have heard from him too. Oh yeah, we would have heard how uncouth Dr. Rowley is and how unprofessional. But Prasad Bisasa, she could go around saying that. Facebook troll, Rowley failed to protect this country and is now angry. And again, using that derogatory term to describe herself as a stinking coolie, as his supporters call me, is doing the job that he never cared to do. So to Commissioner Guevara, the fact that the Prime Minister referenced that term and is saying that that is what Dr. Rowley's supporters calling her, and she's referring there to Star Sabka, I think that confirms that the recording is authentic. So no need for you to investigate the authenticity of the recording. The Prime Minister and the Minister of Homeland Security have both confirmed it is authentic. So, and the fact that the Minister of Homeland Security has indicated that the leak didn't originate with the TTPS suggests that he might know where it originated. So all this resources that you wish to expend to do this investigation that we're probably not going to hear anything more about for months, if we ever hear anything more about it, because with all the bacchanal that's taking place, that is going to get lost in the ether. All right? And unless somebody asks about it a few months down the road, quite likely this is just going to be buried under the bushel, assuming that an investigation even takes place at all. Okay? And depending on if it is determined or established who was responsible for the leak, again, we may not hear anything about this. I'm not saying I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but I'm not overly optimistic, because we're still waiting to hear from the Prime Minister this report to the so-called Forex cartel that she promised 15 months ago, early in her tenure. We're still waiting to know who comprised this cartel. We were told that once you deal with the cartel, it'd be easy to get US. But it's harder now to get US than it was when the PNM demitted office. So, we're going on there. Meanwhile, last week, no, before I go there, should I? Right. So then we had the other statement that was made yesterday in light of yesterday's proceedings with respect to the emancipation procession. and the culmination of saying at the Queen's Park Savannah, where they would have had an evening of events and performances up at the Savannah, just as has become the norm. But the Prime Minister was not there yesterday. She was there last year. She was still new, still fresh, and she went there last year and she gave a speech and she got a rousing round of applause and she was happy with that. But 1 year later, she did not see it fit to attend. Right? When the media reached out to her, she informed them, well, you know, I never confirmed that I was going to make an appearance, firstly. And secondly, I attended two other emancipation events over the course of the last couple of days. So she is emancipation events fatigued. 2 is enough, right? Well, they want to kill me. You all know, see how she shuffle, right? Well, when the woman to go to 3, come on, she gave you all 2. All I want more than that. The big kahuna yesterday, she had time to go to that. She had more pressing issues to attend to. Okay? And that's okay. No complaints from the usual suspects who, when Dr. Rowley had missed the finals of the Diwali Nagar, couldn't stop talking about that. But Prime Minister Pasabi Sessa didn't go to the close-up of the emancipation celebration. So what? What's the big deal? She showed up at 2 others that where she knew she would not, the reception would be a little more palpable than what she figured she would have gotten yesterday. And I think even if she may have been giving consideration to going, after she saw the reception that Michelle Benjamin received yesterday morning downtown while giving her speech, she probably said, nah, forget that. Because if that's what Michelle get, well, boy, what I would get is 10 times worse. Me, go there, forget that. Michelle take one for the Teenage Guild? No. I ain't not going there to get no boo and to get no cuss. And what did she say? Let's review that. Never a dull moment. So, let me play this first. Right.
We understand that the Honorable Kamala Prasad Visesar is unable to join us this afternoon, but we understand.
No. Of course, that's a far cry from the reception that the leader of the opposition would have gotten earlier on in the day, when we would have gone to the Savannah just prior to the start of these events, and the same lady announced the presence of the leader of the opposition and members of the opposition, other MPs, and the crowd was a little more. Yes, they went up the same type of response, but of course they were cheering because they were happy to see us. What you just heard there was them expressing their absolute delight that Mrs. Pasabi Sessa would not be coming. But what was her, let me see, what was her response when the media reached out to her? See if I get this here. Maybe next year, the PNM could lobby, no, not that one. Just where is that one? That's for a different thing. Did I save that one, just now? Let me see if I save that one. Right. On Benjamin being booed, the Prime Minister said, I attended 2 wonderful emancipation events on Thursday in Port of Spain and San Fernando. Those were beautiful events organized by the Office of the Prime Minister and another one by Minister Benjamin. So she attended something that her office organized. So obviously nobody going to boo the Prime Minister. You want to lose your work, right? You don't want to find that way you boo or you didn't show enthusiasm, and then next week somebody comes to your office and tells you that your contract has been terminated after you've been there for 20-something years. Yeah, we okay about you. Go away. You offended the Prime Minister. And the other one by Minister Benjamin. So those were the 2 that the Prime Minister attended. She goes on to say, I am sorry that those persons who were eagerly awaiting to insult and curse me were disappointed. They should not worry. There will always be another event where they may have the opportunity to hurl curses and insults at me. Again, the response of your Honorable Prime Minister. In other words, hey, all the PLM people, I know they was waiting for me, let's open our company, so a little boo, and not me. But your mentor got booed the other day, the World Cup finals, and he went up to assist in handing out the trophy. He got booed, and he took it on the chin. Come on, Kamala, better than that. Come on. Up North would be disappointed in you. All of this is part of the politics. Now, why people don't want to hurl curses at you and insults is beyond me, because when UNC wins, everybody wins. Winners don't curse the Prime Minister. Winners don't hurl insults at the Prime Minister, especially when they're winning under the Prime Minister, under her government. You declared just over a month ago, better days are here. At the end of April, they told us better days are coming. A month and a half later, we heard from the entire cabinet in front of the parliament, better days are here. So if better days are here, and we assume better means better than when the PNM was in power, why would people want to hurl curses and insults at a prime minister who's leading a government that is delivering better days, that is providing for the people in a better way than their predecessors? Why? Dr. Oli never, well, the only time Dr. Oli used to get booed is when the UNC organized the sycophants to come in front of the parliament and line up in Woodford Square, and when Dr. Oli arrived for parliament, they started a boo. But otherwise, that Dr. Oli was never afraid to go to any events and so on. No biggie, he went. Could do what they want. You are Miss, half of me belongs to you and the other half I give to you. So why people want to hurl curses and insults? They should only want to hand you flowers and sing your praises and do like the UNC faithful, lie down on their belly so you could walk on their back. Right? And pay obeisance to you as your parliamentarians do when they're in the chamber. Every time somebody gets up to speak on the government side, they want to pay, they want to congratulate the leader, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister. They can't make a speech or contribution without referring to the Honorable Prime Minister under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister. So I don't understand again why people want to hurl curses and insults at you. But if that is the case, then one questions the next opportunity that they will have to hurl curses and insults at you. Will it be at the Independence Day parade? Will you be presenting yourself? Because usually when the Prime Minister arrives, the stands are already, the North Stand, well, the grandstand is usually packed, and the people who are waiting on the wings to view the parade, so when they see PDM1 rolling in, usually when the Prime Minister steps out, there would be applause and cheers and so on. But apparently she's expecting to get curses and insults. So is she prepared for that, or is she not going to show up and deny these people a second opportunity to hurl curses and insults at her? Are we even having an Independence Day parade? Because up to yesterday, the North Stand is still in place. And as we know, that area where the North Stand currently is part of the area that is used for the parade. So, grandstand, you sit in the grandstand and you take in all of these events, the president doing the inspection and so on, and then of course when that is completed, the dignitaries will leave. They go across to Napa where they would have the toast under the auspices of the president, and the other members of the public will view as the members, the officers and so on, march off. So, but we saw this here, they took the, to use the vernacular, they just took the Emancipation Village again, which would normally be where the North Stand is. They took it in a corner on the right. Go on the side now. Yeah. Let's push them in the corner, make some room, and put them in the corner there. And it worked, I guess. So, maybe they're trying to figure out something on how they could keep the North Stand up, and yeah, so we wait with bated breath to see how that is going to work out. They may very well say, well, we will also provide the North Stand for members of the public to come and sit instead of having to stand on the sidelines in the hot sun. We wait to see. Or they'll probably figure something out. It's either they don't have it, or if they do, well, they might surprise us. My understanding is that they have not yet paid the contractors who put up the North Stand, and the cost is to put it up and to take it down. And if you've not yet paid the people, they're not going to come and take it down, and then they have to wait another year to get the money. The Pan fraternity, I saw long lines. I think sometime last week there, finally the Pan players started to receive their payments, but I think Beverly Ramsey Moore had mentioned that she was told by the minister that the bands, the prize monies for the bands and so on, will probably be paid at the end of August. But then she was made similar promises at the end of April, the end of May, and so on. That did not materialize. So if they have to wait until the next budget, but when UNC wins, everybody wins. So, Madam Prime Minister, let's see. So poor Michelle got booed yesterday. And what has now become an iconic statement, and I think should be the rallying cry from now until the general election, is we will remember. Not that we won't forget, We will remember that you offered us food for tomorrow while we starve today. And that sums up what this government has been doing for the past 15 months. Promising you brighter days are ahead. Yeah, but SALT, to the CPAP and URP workers, bust their throat, take their work. After you rode into office using their votes, promises and promises, didn't tell them that you were going to shut down these programs and take away their sole source of income, their sole livelihood, and leave them in the lurch with no viable alternative. You said it wasn't good enough, you would do better. You hire about 1,600 out of about 15,000 plus, and they're still waiting. So yet another July-August vacation is upon us. We are now in August, so the opening of school is just about 4 weeks or so away. And there are many parents who scratching their heads wondering where the money is going to come from to buy school books. Some of them have multiple children, so it's several book lists to be filled. Many of them are waiting in the wings, hoping that the members of parliament or somebody else would have some sort of book drive or back to school drive where they could get some books, maybe some uniforms, some sort of school material to assist. My office and that of several MPs, not just PNM MPs, UNC as well, have been inundated with calls and requests from persons who are looking to apply for the book grant. The line has been long. People wanting letters and so on to get this book grant. But of course, applying does not guarantee that you will get through, because last year I know quite a few people who applied and still waited. And then many of those who did receive the school grant, they didn't receive it until close to the opening of school, and in some cases after the school term had already opened. So, yeah, that's where we are. So, poor Michelle get booed yesterday. She took one for the team. What did she expect? When Dr. Rowley was Prime Minister, normally he would have been the one to deliver the remarks at the start of the procession. Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar has not done so. Last year, as I said, she went up to the Savannah, she talked a little bit, and then upstairs, they went upstairs to the VIP lounge, where they had the best of food and the best of drink. Only premium liquor they had upstairs. All Tom, Dick, Harry, Jenny, and Jane was upstairs. All the social media activists and so on, a sort of hungry mouth activists were upstairs in the VIP lounge, eating the best food at the expense of you, the taxpayer. Right? Not sparing a thought for all those persons who, some of them might have been sitting in the audience and hungry, but who still came out, to participate or partake of the free entertainment. Yeah, while they were liking themselves upstairs. And I'm sure the same thing happened yesterday as well. No different, just that the Prime Minister wasn't in attendance, and she couldn't care less. But we saw that UTT, under the chairmanship of Professor Sellout Kojo, hosted an emancipation event and decided that it was a good idea to include, some East Indian dancing and an East Indian orchestra to play some East Indian music, and they talked about unity and all of that. All well and good, you know. But oh gosh, allow the African community now. One thing, allow them one thing that they could celebrate on their own now. We have no problems with Ganges meeting the Nile and all of these different things, all that good stuff. But we have many other occasions during the course of the year where the Ganges could meet the Nile. They're just asking for this one occasion, emancipation, because of the significance of that event to the African community, that if we have, or you're having an event to commemorate that significance, that you let it be about that alone. That you don't come and water it down and dilute it with your stories about what happened to other people. They say the false equivalence. They say, well, slavery and indentureship was more or less the same thing. No, it was not. It could never be the same thing. Right? And no matter how you try to twist it, spin it, and turn it, it will never be the same thing. So just allow the African community a little something. Because for 364 out of 365 days of the year, the African community has to be hearing from other ethnic groups about how they're worthless, they can't run business, they're only committing a set of crime, they're no damn good, all they can do is make a set of children that they can't mind, all these things. 364 days of the year, they keep hearing that. Right? That the majority of people in the prison are of African descent. Philip Alexander, persons of African descent only serve two purposes, that is as laborers and consumers. You can't do nothing else, you can't own business, you can't do anything. And that is your sole purpose in life. So one day for the year they're asking, well, let us focus and hear something else, a little uplifting about the African community now. Right? Something positive. Because for the next 364, that's all they're singing here. You know? But even that is too difficult. So we had to deal with the Indian High Commission advertising an open house on the first which was supposed to have been held yesterday, specifically for East Indians and persons of the East Indian diaspora. And that is what people took issue with, not the ridiculousness that I am hearing UNC supporters talking about. So what? So you can't have nothing else on Emancipation Day. So if my birthday is the 1st of August, I can have a birthday party. You all are taking it ridiculous to the extreme. So what? We can't go to Cora River and have a corridor line or a river line on Emancipation Day. What utter stupidness and foolishness. Nobody is saying that you all can't have anything else. The issue that was taken with that whole scenario was that the Indian High Commission is advertising something, an event that is specifically for East Indians on a day that is of particular significance to the African community. That's it. Nothing else. If they had just put out, we have an open house, I'd open to everybody, nobody would have made an issue of it. It is the fact that you appeared to want to encourage by having something that is totally opposed, diametrically opposed to what was the significance of yesterday, is where people took the issue. But leave it up to the UNC supporters to show that they're fully dunce and want to take it to the extreme. That was the issue. But when Professor Sellout Kojo thought it was a good idea to have this event, and the equivalencies would be raised. People are saying, you think we could see an African dance troupe at the Diwali Nagar? And the fully dance, the hypocrites will say, well, we wouldn't have no problem with that. You lie. You all would have a very big problem if that were to happen. Right? Let us not fool ourselves and play smart with foolishness. The fact that it has never happened is why it tells us that you all would have an issue with it. So miss us with that rubbish. But because, now, first off, the objection to that did not start in the PNM camp. I first saw that put out by Rhoda Barrett, right? Others commented on it, and then eventually I saw Nian Gatsby Dolly put out she did a little video and so on. She spoke about it and proffered her own views on the matter. But that did not escape the the Prime Minister. All right? And she felt that she needed to respond to that too. Because she seems to have more time on her hands to be on Facebook and on social media rather than doing the job for which she's receiving $87,000 plus per month. And what was her response? Let me get it here. Maybe next year the PNM could lobby UTT to invite Star Sabga for a spoken word performance. So clearly she sees nothing wrong with it. She has no issue with it. Again, there's African emancipation. I gave you all 2 appearances at events that was organized by my office and the office of the Minister of Culture. I don't think you all need more of that. You are not worth any more of my time as it pertains to emancipation celebrations. Okay? The little strength, the little energy that I have to conserve it. I give all 2 appearances. What more? One than that? Relax. Right? What's the issue? So what? So the UTT decided to mix up the thing. What's the issue? We wait to see, madam. Diwali coming up. Let's see if the UTT will have an event for Diwali and include some African performances. An opportunity for them to redeem themselves. And let's see if it is that the hypocrites in the UNC will praise it and say, see, we don't have a problem with it. It was just the PNM overreacting as usual. Okay. Not surprised. Could write a book, all these things, all these responses of the political leader of the UNC, the Prime Minister. Things that she could get away with. Keith Rowley could have never get away with that. They would have raked him over the coals. But then again, to demonstrate UNC hypocrisy. Let me get this here. So they say, well, what's the big issue with UTT having an event and having an emancipation event and having a little bit of East Indian performances? What's the issue? PNM just overreacting and so on. I remind you all, for Diwali 2021, there were a couple of things that happened. One of which was the Member of Parliament for St. Anne's East, or the St. Anne's East constituency, the PNM, decided to have a curry duck or a curry queue on the day after Diwali, I believe it was. Yeah. And a curry queue, right? And the UNC didn't take too kindly to that. Why? Because the curry queue was serving chicken. Listen to some of the responses from prominent people in the UNC at the time. Senator Jayanti Lakshmi, who seems to have vanished into thin air, right? Once a prominent UNC senator, many thought that she would have been a part of this government. 15 months later, she even get a board appointment. That's to tell you. After all these fantastic performances she used to put on in the Senate to impress her leader, seems Kamala was not impressed. But listen to Jayanti. Imagine a former Minister of Culture and a present Minister in charge of Education is organizing a Diwali curry queue and serving chicken. And the PNM talk about a multicultural society, but to them, it's just a buzzword. They don't have it, or they don't live it, and certainly don't set the right example. This goes beyond being tone deaf. It is disrespectful. The minister owes an apology to the Hindu community. There's Jayanti, right? Because St. Anne's East constituency decided to have a curry queue and it had chicken. Jalen Jenna Rupnarayan, who is a UNC counselor, was then and still is. Oh, wow, is this for real? We all know Diwali is an auspicious occasion that celebrates the triumph of light for the Hindu community. My question, was that the only date available on the calendar to do a curry queue? Right, to do a curry queue fundraiser with chicken? She's asking, was that the only date? But when persons of African descent ask, so is that the only date that the Indian High Commission could have had the event, specifically for East Indians only? What's the big deal? What are you making an issue for? So all you own the 1st of August? And hypocrisy at its best. She goes on to say, not veggie alone, but chicken. Total disrespect. What's your take on this? Comments. Barry Shiva Padarat or Padarat. Is this the PNM's appreciation and respect for the Hindu community by the former Minister of Culture? A few years ago, they hit us with the sari skit, and we were told that was a joke. Chris Arshad Hussain, UNC MP for Reform Manahambre. The PNM St. Anne's East constituency selling chicken for Diwali is nothing short of tone deaf and absolutely disrespectful to our Hindu brothers and sisters. And to promote this as a Diwali event and use, well, let's see what else he said. Well, that's what I got there, right? So all of these prominent UNC people had an issue with the St. Anne's East constituency having a curry queue. So I guess all the roti shops that were open on that day were being disrespectful to the Hindu community, because I am sure that they didn't say, well, we're not selling any meat today. For the non-Hindus who would come into the roti shop on that day, and we know some of the people who patronize the roti shops the most on days that are East Indian holidays, lines outside the doors, and mostly persons of African descent. I used to do that many years ago. I stopped that. I'm not doing that nonsense. Right? Yeah. This thing about you, when it's an East Indian holiday, you must eat curry if you didn't get an invite from your East Indian neighbor or your friend or something. Yeah, but as a child growing up, we used to do that, but we cut all that. Right? Not saying that if I get an invitation, I wouldn't go. Because I have my friends who have East Indian descent would invite me if I could make it. But this is the hypocrisy of the UNC. Right? So as I was saying, all the roti shops, I'm sure they didn't only have chicken. I'm sure they had beef too. You want your beef roti. And we know the cow is sacred to the Hindu religion. They probably had goat. Some of them probably had duck. You know. Yeah. So they weren't being disrespectful to the Hindu community by still selling meat on Diwali Day. But the St. Anne's East constituency having a curry queue was disrespectful. Showed total disregard for the Hindu community. They toned deaf for all of that. But these same hypocrites had no problem with what the UTT did. No, that was perfectly okay. They had no problem with what the Indian High Commission attempted to do. No, that's okay. And the people who take an offense said, you all are being petty, small-minded. Double standards. That's what the UNC does. But we're not surprised, right? And they will not change. Now, coming back quickly to the issue of, the comments of the Prime Minister. And I saw one of their mouthpieces who is a host on 91.1, who's receiving your taxpayers' dollars every month to talk rubbish for 2 to 3 hours every day, right? Because that's what they've done. I've said before, they've turned TTT Limited into a sound and echo chamber for UNC propaganda. And so they flooded it with all their mouthpieces. One of them by the name of David Welch. There I call him a dunce. I've seen him around the parliament precincts and standing on the sidelines in the parliament chamber a few times. Why? I don't know. But anyway, all of them feel they own the parliament now. Let me get this here. So he put out a post and it reads, this race war that the PNM is trying to drag us to, I am not playing it. Let me repeat that. This race war that the PNM is trying to drag us into, I am not playing it. If the UNC was so racist, why do black people benefit more from them than the PNM? But he can't tell you how black people benefited from under the UNC as opposed to the PNM. Because in their last iteration, 2010 to 2015, what did persons of African descent get? Well, they expanded the same CPEP that Kamla described as the intergenerational transfer of poverty that it was the worst thing any political leader could have done to their supporters. Remember when CPAP first came out, she said all these things. If memory serves me correctly, Anna Ramlogan called it a loveless thing. When they came in 2010, CPAP had about 5,000 workers. When they left, it was close to 50, well, over 11,000 were there. So they would have hired a significant number of the same contractors who they fired last year and said was corruption, and it was the contractors' corruption. But they hired many of those same contractors. They opposed when the PNM came in 2016 and said they were looking to revamp the thing. You can't fire people, you can't shut down the program, Munila, how people will suffer, and all that rubbish. Right? They expanded the program by double. But what else did they do? They gave us baby grant, $500 a month to make child. And they targeted certain people. They gave you Color Me Orange, $69 a day to paint dilapidated buildings in downtown Port of Spain, East Port of Spain, right? And you had to pay for your own uniform and so on. 3 months. What else did they do for persons of African descent? I'm at a loss. If anybody can remember, help me out now. But here it is that you have David Welch, this sellout, coming to talk about this race war that the PNM pushing. Well, let me remind David Welch, this so-called race war. I don't know what race war he talking about. I don't know war. Right? What we know is that we have the UNC that feels that they are now emboldened based on the utterances of their leader to come out there and say all these filthy things that they say. Right? Continue, because after 2 elections, 2015 and 2020, when the UNC lost, we would recall social media was overwhelmed with calling PNM people monkey and ape and cockroach, telling East Indian businessmen to jack up the prices of their goods and services for persons of African descent. They were encouraging the doubles vendors to put feces in the doubles for persons of African descent. Social media was replete with these comments. Ms. Ramsaran, the comments that was made about her and others. PNM lost the election last year, April. Did you see an abundance of PNM supporters coming on social media and talking about how, well, the UNC win because their supporters voted based on race? But the 2 times the PNM won, they only voted based on race. PNM does only vote based on race. No, yeah, but their supporters voted based on issues. Yeah, they voted based on issues, right? When they win. Race only comes in and is only factored in, but yet still when you look at constituencies like Oropuch, East and West, Separia, Faizabad, and all of these other constituencies that the UNC have a stronghold on, and you look at the margin of victory, thousands of votes. But the seats where the PNM win, small margins, 300, 250 something, 1,000, 1,500, not the wide margins that we see in their constituencies, which is predominantly persons of East Indian descent. But they don't vote on race. No, they vote strictly based on issues. There's only PNM supporters that vote based on race. So what did they vote on last year? Just asking the UNC faithful. What did PNM supporters vote based on last year? They decide all of a sudden they're not racist anymore. When many of them went out in 2010 and gave the support to the People's Partnership, they all got over 454,000 votes. Many of those were persons who support the PNM, who turned against the PNM and gave you all PNM constituencies, Arima, Dabadio Mera. Which was the other ones they took? Well, they got Sangui Grandi, they got what was then Lupino Bonnet West, they got San Fernando West. Did they get? No, they didn't get the one local government. They took the Diego Martin Corporation. Right? They took La Hoqueta Talparo. So they were able to hold on and get what was considered to be the last election. I want to ask the UNC faithful, Labre and Point Fortin, the PNM people, what they vote on last year? Because for years you all couldn't win those 2 seats and all of a sudden you all get it. What did they vote on? They just woke up on the 20th of April and say, this year we don't want to be racist anymore. We're not going to vote based on race anymore. No, we're going to vote based on issues or not vote. But we look at UNC 18 stronghold seats and we look at the numbers, didn't shift. Most of them probably got additional votes. Whereas in the PNM constituencies, we lost thousands of votes. In my own constituency of Malaba Mausika, we went from over 11,000 to just about 7,000 7,400 or 7,500 and some votes. PNM. Right? PNM. I think the constituency that got the highest number of votes was Trin-City Maloney, less than 10,000 votes. Camille always gets the highest number of votes, right? Less than 10,000. But we have UNC seats. Kamla got over 16,000, Munilal got over 16,000, and then Princess Tongokan has 16 and 15,000. We don't see those numbers. But our supporters vote on race and you all vote on issues. No, it has nothing to do with race. We stupid. Yeah, we do it, Tish. Don't buy that nonsense. So they could attempt to blame the PNM all they want for this so-called race war. But the reality is that the people who feel that they could come on social media and use racial invective is predominantly UNC supporters. You all can say what it is you want, that is a fact. And your leader contributed to that foolishness. And I will remind them, back in 20, let me get it here. Where is it? Right. Back in 2012, during her first iteration as Prime Minister, when Dr. Rowley went as opposition leader to this would have been his second year as opposition leader, when he went to the Diwali Nagar to speak, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa criticized him for that. And she made the infamous statement, "Beware those who come to you wearing the clothes of your ancestors as they try to fool you." That's what she said. Because Dr. Rowley went there wearing a kurta. And a man who back then was a little more balanced, he totally lost it now. And he was rewarded for that. Right? Ralph Maraj wrote a very stinging article speaking to that in 2012. And it was entitled "Ugly Prime Minister." This is what Ralph Maraj wrote. "Before Diwali, I wrote that Rawan rules here, pointing to corruption, political tribalism, decadence, and a spreading social swampland in Trinidad and Tobago." This is Ralph Maraj writing, this is his article, right? And this is him describing Trinidad and Tobago under the People's Partnership. But today, Kamla Prasad Bisesa is the best thing ever. Rowley was the worst thing ever. The Prime Minister proved me right. At the Diwali Nagar, she was raw and Rawanic, pouring her darkness on the people's lights, blasting the kurta-clad opposition leader. Unbelievable, scandalous, and completely without class. Ralph Maraj. It rendered the rest of her speech sounding brass and clinging cymbal, high-sounding hollowness. For she spoke of Dharma but was divisive, posed as the Gyani but was unenlightened, celebrated Hanuman but was small and mean, touted fearlessness but was as insecure as Kaikeyi, the stepmother who engineered Rama's exile. Ugly Kamla, ugly. This is Ralph Maraj. Dressed up nice and so ugly. Thank God for the brave little diyas lit by thousands of ordinary hands. They triumphed over the darkness that you invoked. Ralph Maraj. The UNC will pay dearly for this. Henceforth, Kamla could pull whatever costume from her wardrobe, headpieces and all for Emancipation or Shouta Baptist Day. She will justifiably be seen as a pathetic masquerader with her contrived cosmopolitanism. She claimed to speak for Hindus, but many of all sects reject her Raksha's rubbish of that night. She attacked Rowley because he condemned her bowing at the feet of the Indian president. So let's make it abundantly clear. As Prime Minister of TNT, Kamla must bow to nobody in this universe. Respect the nation that you lead. We the people demand it. You were not on a personal pilgrimage. In any case, in the Hindu tradition, you bow at the feet of the elders in your family or your pundit or spiritual leader. Not to every elderly Hindu that you meet. Then you could be bowing all day and all night. The then President of India, Pratibha Patil, was not Kamla's Aji, Nani, Kaki, Mausi, or any other family elder. She was not a guru of India. She was merely the ceremonial head of the Indian government, as was her predecessor Abdul Kalam, and Patil has gone, replaced by Pranab Mukherjee. Kamala called her bowing a sacred exercise in devotion. Hare Ram. Devotion, devotion to whom? Devotion to the President of India? What idiocy. This is Ralph Maraj. If we follow Kamala's logic and Max Richards' work, Ramachandra Maharaj, all Hindus would bow to him whenever they meet him in a sacred exercise in devotion. Ridiculous. Kamala was totally out of place and belittled the nation. She behaved like a little country bumpkin. The Indian protocol establishment has an acute sense of propriety, and knowing them, I still hear derisive giggles and guffaws in New Delhi whenever they remember the spectacle. It will forever remain an embarrassment. Ask him that now. If he remembers writing this article, he might tell you otherwise. And it was all theater to make headlines in India. Embarrassing your country to get your picture in the Indian papers. What next? He goes on, therefore discipline this Prime Minister before she does further damage. She has already gotten away with too much, from Rishmi to Section 34 and so much in between. People of culture lead the way. It is your responsibility, National Council of Indian Culture, reject Kamala's uncultured behavior at the Nagar. Your mandate is to elevate Indian culture. Her attack on Rowley was not Indian culture. It was despicable, divisive darkness. Maintain your respect, NCIC. Condemn her behavior and don't invite her again unless she issues a public apology. That's Ralph Maraj. The same for the Emancipation Support Committee, the Shouta Baptist Movement, the Chinese Association, the Syrian Lebanese Organization, and the Douglas Brotherhood, if it exists. Collaborate, stand up, give the national anthem meaning. The Prime Minister insulted every citizen with that ugliness. Discipline her. And he's talking here about her criticism of Dr. Rowley wearing a kurta to come to the Diwali Nagar. If he had worn a full suit, they would have say something else. This is what he couldn't put on a kurta, he couldn't find one, couldn't afford one. Do not invite her to your celebrations without her contrition. Exile her to her residence, office, and constituency to do some real work for a change and to exercise the inner demons that produced those dark utterances. And do not fear the government will withhold funds for your organizations. It is your money and you must have it, with or without the Prime Minister. And if they make the mistake and are vindictive, stand up and be worthy of the history you represent. Time to discipline these politicians. We are their bosses. Raise the bar. No politician, partnership, or PNM who acts against the nation must be allowed to bask in the people's limelight, hugging national celebrations without doing penance. Take them from the front pages and you terrify them. Rowley does not represent the PNM only. He goes on to say, this nation has huge problems of declining revenue and mounting debt, and its leader is fulminating over Rowley's kurta. He is our opposition leader, as Kamala is our Prime Minister. His office is critical to our democracy and we must protect it. And when Rowley deserves it, we must condemn him, as I have done several times for feeling miserably in his sacred duty to protect the people from Section 34. But we must stand with him when he's abused like this. Where is Ralph today? Where is Ralph? But we must stand with him when he's abused like this. He is wise not to respond. Be the victim. People are actually beginning to feel sorry for Keith Rowley. Ralph, where are you? Insecurity is the cause of Kamala's stupidity. The floating vote has left her, some to the PNM, most parked, and her own supporters are increasingly disenchanted. So to protect the base, she drives a partisan wedge. So short-sighted. She may have corralled die-hard Hindu supporters who weren't leaving anyway, but she stirred displeasure among professional, upwardly mobile Hindus, as well as Muslims and Presbyterians. She is dismantling her inheritance, Pandey's carefully crafted Indo coalition, and taking the UNC back to the DLP days, the most backward Prime Minister and very ugly. Ralph Maraj, former government minister. Is Ralph saying that? Any different to what we get in today? In fact, if anything, it's even worse. That this time around, she feels it's okay to be using divisive, derogatory terminology. She should have just kept quiet. Okay, the recording was leaked. Leave it as is. But no, she had to add fuel to the fire. She said, bring the petrol, bring the gasoline, light it higher, bring wood. We need a bonfire here. This too small, right? Yeah, this little spark all you have there. No. Bring thing. Bring a fan. Oxygen. Because we need a, right. And so she keeps doubling down and tripling down, as is the norm with her. Right? So it's okay to call Dr. Rowley a Facebook troll. But then to come and reference something that people are saying, you're saying that what Star said was so obnoxious, it was so disgusting. The court described it as vehement and offensive. But you saying it is not vehement, it's not offensive. And for that, you hit the woman at PDO. For that, she's now under house arrest. But you're using it all willy-nilly, and your supporters taking cue from you and feel it's okay for them to use it too. What example are we setting for the younger ones? And that is why the young people are not interested in the politics. That is why they continue to say the 41 of us playing the donkey in parliament. We kicks in. We're not serious. That they need to get rid of all of us and start over. Us new ones who we just went there. Norwich haven't even had an opportunity to establish ourselves yet. And we have already gotten labeled as being waste of time and the worst of things, because those geriatrics who find it difficult to pack up and leave, as someone said, making decisions that will have an impact on a future that they may very well not be a part of. Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar is 74. By the time the next election rolls around, she'll be what, 77, 78? I might still want to fight another two. For what? I made the point before. 50 years ago, Explainer sang the song in Parliament, they kicks in. 50 years later, the population saying the same thing. None of the parliamentarians who were there 50 years ago are in the parliament today. None. The majority of them have already gone to the great beyond. But yet still, same perspective, the same position that the population has of the 41 of us who sit in parliament. But they want to come and blame the PNM for promoting a race war. But it's not since 2010 to 2015, Prasad-Bissessar and her comments. And as I said before, her supporters take a cue from her. If she vex, they vex. If she not upset, they're not upset. So in the case of when Camille at that meeting mentioned her name, Kamla Sushila Prasad-Bissessar, and said it a couple times during her short, brief speech, they didn't originally take offense to that. And I always highlight the hypocrisy. That night, Laurel Azama Leasing was the MC, right? Master ceremonies for that. So she was introducing all of these speakers and so on. And I heard Laurel mention several times the same thing. Kamla Sushila Prasad-Bissessar. Kamla Sushila Prasad-Bissessar several times, more times than Camille. Yet still, Kamla didn't take issue with Laurel. None of them. For 9 days, she wasn't upset. So for 9 days, the UNC's Women's League didn't have a problem with Camille calling out Kamla's full government name. For 9 days, the Doglaya, that bald-headed clown, right? That consummate rumcock, he didn't have a problem with it. No doubles and coffee, no Dogla politics criticizing Camille. None of the usual potowns had any issue with it. Nobody wrote any letters to the newspapers to complain. But 9 days after, Kamla comes to a public meeting, and just by the way, she just talking, she just rambling, and she remembered, hey, let me talk about this. Camille, and she mentioned talking about my name and calling up my name and so on. And my name is that from my ancestors. Where did you get your name, Camille? Yours is that of a slave master. And 9 days after, it took her 9 days, right? No press release put out, no nothing from anybody in the UNC. So we think that dead and done. She just mentioned it as an aside. It wasn't even part of her talking notes, her speaking notes. And she mentioned it. And then all of a sudden, she indicated, she was upset, she was offended. And then that triggered it. So the whole circus, the whole UNC cult, all the potongs run out. Oh, disrespectful, racist, and all of that. All of a sudden, the UNC Women's League decided to pen something and put out a press release and who not and stuff. It took you all 9 days. Right? For 9 days. Massa, we sick? We offended? No? Okay. Day 2. Massa, we sick? We offended? No? Okay. For 9 days. And then on day 9, Massa get tired of you all coming to ask her every day if she offended. And she said, okay, I offended, right? I offended today. Right. So go and do what all you have to do now. Make it out to be this big racist thing and the PNM racist and Camille racist. But you didn't hear Laurel say the same thing. About 10 times more than Camille, you didn't hear. So you weren't offended when Laurel said it, but you had a problem with Camille said it. Bunch of hypocrites in the UNC. Fake outrage is what it is, and nothing short of it. Meanwhile, now watching the time there. Let me see here. Prompted by some personal agendas. I won't even respond to you right now. Meanwhile, let me get this here. So, the CSO has decided to put out some additional data. That's why I have to say I have no faith in the CSO department, and I make no apologies for saying that. I said it a couple months ago when this report came out about some 8,000 persons were hired at the end of the last quarter of last year, and ministers were trumpeting it. We had the Minister of Labor came to the Parliament on the 18th of June, right, and decided to make a complete of himself. But before, while I'm looking for that, let me play this, right? So we all know about the Queen of the EDR, one of the persons who got a big work in Wassa. Thanks to their social media advocacy, cussing the PNM, cussing Kid Rowley and Stuart Young and Foster Cummins and everybody, right? And so they were rewarded with our work. Well, it seems certain promises may have been made to some people. Promises made, promises not kept, promises not delivered, and people decide, well, they're going to use the platform the same way they used it to malign and damage the PNM and to encourage their followers to vote against the PNM. It seems now they're a little disappointed. Right? So listen to this, and I'll come back to the CSO report just now.
What I think about the woman who booed the minister, she know why she booed the minister. The public know why they booed the minister. The public know why they boo her, and she know why too. It's my girl enough respect, but they know why too. You see the promises, they promised me too. You promised me too. You know that? I know all the promise. I still have a way to. Minister, if people didn't get treated right, and this is the place you have to meet them, right? To tell them what you have to tell them, nobody can get vexed. Because when they're embarrassing we and they're insulting we, behind closed doors, and we can't get to tell them as we want, because they're on their phone and they cut it off, right? Or you don't see that. You understand? But all you see when we open our mouth to defend we right, all you see that. Give me a break. Emancipation. But you see the mama guy? Look at the mama guy own little child because the child and all just jump out and cry, knock until they get over. So don't come to mama guy we, don't mama guy we, minister. No, you know what you did. And this is not the first time. This is not the first time people do that. Wake up from that sleeping. If you're sleeping, I like you, you know that too. I like you. There's the day before me and you was talking on the air. But you see the mama guy, people can't take that. The minister of culture. People can't take that. All you could come to defend all you want. The public see what went on and know what go on. Stop mama guy and people being hurt in here. There's some people hurt that tears coming from their eye. Not because you sit down on top there. You feel you could use we and take up a phone and mama guy read. And when we see you outside, you want to call police, you want to call it local pat down. What I
Yesterday was yesterday and today is today. Yes. All kind of things this individual say about the PNM. PNM had to take a rest, PNM this, PNM time for the PNM to go. Yes, and this government thing and Kamlan. Now you're talking about Mama Guy? So when we were telling the population all the time, since April 28th come forward about the Mama Guy, the lies, all the fake promises. No, don't study the PNM. The PNM trying to be this divisive and the PNM this and the PNM. Now they heard it straight from her mouth. And she eat her food. She and others. But she eat one of the biggest foods. Right? And now she's speaking on. I don't know what she's referring to. The minister know what they do and who. I don't know what was done. Right? But promises from me, the same minister in the parliament last year during the budget debate, I asked her about 2 community centers in my own constituency, community center in Samaru village and the one in Karapo. Told her about the state of these 2 community centers. The one in Samaru village was that one was a more recent vintage. The PNM built that. And I don't know if it's some fellas from the area or whoever went and they vandalized the place. They stole everything, the fridge, the stove, everything, the light fixtures, AC, clean out the place. And there were groups in Samaru village who were doing work to assist the youth to keep them out of a life of crime. And I asked the minister when we were going through allocations in the Standing Finance Committee, I said, is any of this money to treat with the Samaru village community center and the Karapo community center? She said, no, but if you write to me, right, and I will say we will send the technocrats out and they will look at it and then we will see what we could do to write letter, no response, no acknowledgement of the correspondence. And today, the community centers are just as bad. Absolutely nothing has been done. But when you ask about it in Parliament, you know what they will hear? But all it was there for 10 years and it was built in that 10 years. Well, the one in Samaru village. So don't come and tell me about the 10 years and while it didn't fix it was built in the 10 years. It was vandalized in that period of time. I was not there. I was not a member of parliament. I was not the representative of Malabar Mausika at that time. I could not make any representation for it. I am the MP now, and it is my responsibility to raise the issue. Don't tell me nothing about who was there before. I couldn't care less. They can answer for themselves. Lisa Morris Julian is no longer here. She cannot speak for herself. I am speaking for what exists now, and I am telling you it needs to be fixed. You all in charge. As you all said, all you have the money. You all don't need our support. That is your work. Whether it in a PNM constituency is beside the point. You, as the Minister of Culture, it falls under you, fix it. Because when the young people who are using it to do productive things have nothing to do and they turn to a life of crime, all the PNM constituencies have the most of the worst, the most amount of crime and the worst roads and the most amount of poverty and most everything. And what you all doing to fix it? Absolutely nothing. Leave it so. Because you tell yourself that will help you all, and you also the PNM don't do nothing for their constituencies. I am of the considered view Malabar Mausika is one of the few constituencies that does not need as much as the other constituencies. Right? We have, for the most part, we have some bad roads that need some work. We have some facilities that need some work as well. But not as bad as some of the other constituencies, and I'm including UNC constituencies here too. Malabar Mausika, as far as I see, I consider it to be a constituency of low-hanging fruit. We don't need that much. So fix the few problems that we have, right? And that's one less that you have to deal with, and you could deal with the others that have bigger issues. But they love to say the PNM men do nothing. PNM then do nothing. Let me remind them of efforts that were made by the PNM to help the African community.
Taken to ensure equity in distribution of state lands.
We in the cabinet recognize, and I'm telling you flatly, that for some reason or reasons, perhaps nothing wrong, perhaps nothing corrupt, but the bulk of applications we got for the grant of state land for sometimes residential, but most times agricultural pursuits, we did not see African people among the enthusiasts in that regard. We have taken action as a government, as a cabinet, to ensure that when we deal with these applications, we see equity and we see balance. And that is happening now.
Taken to ensure
And that UNC said something was wrong with that. Because Mr. Hines came on a public platform and told the population, government of the People's National Movement has a program where we're seeking to distribute state lands to ordinary citizens. Some to build housing because people want houses, they don't have access to land, and we know the long list in HDC. So we want to give out land for people to build houses, but we want to provide land as well for agricultural pursuits so that people could employ themselves and they don't need to be begging the government for work. When we looked at the list of people who applied for the program to get the land, we were disappointed because we find we're not seeing enough persons of African descent. Complaint, Africans can't do nothing. They can't run business. They have nothing. Any land that they have, they're selling it. Land they get from their great-grandparents and their grandparents is to sell it and so on for next to nothing and all of that. Government decided we're going to make a direct intervention. We are seeing a disparity here. Yes, it is open to everybody, but we would like to see more persons of African descent apply for these lands, whether it's to build a house or to go into agriculture. And because Mr. Hines said that, they wanted to kill him, to lynch him, because he made that point. Well, we have to go to the Equal Opportunity Commission and go to the courthouse because this is discrimination, and that's how we're giving out land now based on people's last name. What's the issue with that? If it is that we are saying that the African community needs a little bit of help, what is the issue with that? Maybe some of them weren't aware of it, and it requires some level of intervention on the part of the government to make them aware. That is why, under the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, which no longer exists, when that ministry had all these programs for the young people, the over 50-something programs that Foster Cummins and the then government created, all of which were paying stipends. So it wasn't just come and learn a trade. We're paying you to learn a trade too, and when you finish, we will help you to use that trade, to use what you've learned to start a business, work for yourself. You don't have to be sending out resumes every day, every week, and you sit down home waiting and only looking in your inbox to see if anybody reply. Every time the phone rings, you're hoping is one of the persons that you sent a resume to. No, start your own business. You be the employer. You hire people in your own area and show them how you did it, and you could be an exemplar to them, and they could now follow suit and start their own business. So we're looking to create entrepreneurs, not create 50,000 jobs like the UNC wants to create. They had a problem with that. And when the PNM realized that these young people were not taking up the opportunities, they created the caravan and would go into the different communities and constituencies, going to the young people to get them to sign up for it. They had a problem with that. When Dr. Rowley said we're going to spend $100 million in Laventille East, Morva, Laventille West, which includes areas Beetham and Sealots, and so all these areas, so that we could invest $100 million to assist the African community to clean up and to enhance the very same constituencies that the UNC supporters always talking about. The state of Laventille and what the state of Beetham and Sealots, and how they always vote in PNM and they're loyal to the PNM and what the PNM ever do for them. But when the PNM announced that we're going to do for them, we will broach no opposition. We will find the money and we will invest it directly into there. These same people who are concerned about the condition of Beetham and Sealots and Laventille, where were they to come out and applaud the government and say, well done, Keith Rowley? I don't like you, I don't like the PNM, but well done. Because for years, we find these areas needed to improve, and the fact that you have decided to take the bull by the horn and invest in the first instance $100 million to improve these areas so we could stop bad-mouthing them and washing our mouth on them. Congratulations, well done. Did they say that? No. Instead, they're going to take that money to give the bandit, and they're going to give the gang leaders, and that's what they're going to do with it. They're just using that as a ruse to give it to the criminal element. That's to buy support for the upcoming election. Nothing positive. Even Gary Griffith disappointed me when Dr. Rowley said that they would use retired Defense Force officers to go in there, right, to be able to assist with some of the programs that this money would be spent on. He come to tell you that the government want to send a set of big belly men in the 70s and 80s to go and to assist the young people, as if he didn't know that the retirement age, as a former Defense Force man, he should know what the retirement age, the minimum retirement age is for the Defense Force. People 45 and 46 and 48 who's still in their prime and who could go there and make a difference. These were the people that Dr. Rowley was talking about. But again, paint a picture. They want to send us his words, I said that big belly men in the 60s and 70s and 80s to go and do work inside it to augment their pension. When nothing could be further from the truth. And that is the problem that I have. That when they say the PNM didn't do anything for the African community, at every turn, you had somebody who was trying to skew and to spin in a negative way what the PNM was trying to, which is why I always reference and upset by that TikTok video that I saw with that young man. Looked like he could be no more than 18, 19 years old, talking about, you see what the PNM want to do for the youth? They want me to go and dig dirt in the hot sun, talking about the Youth in Agriculture Homestead Program. Nobody told the young man, you're getting, the government is paying for 2 years for you to get tuition in agriculture up at UB. Nobody told him that part. Nobody told him he was going to get a stipend for the 2 years that he would be studying agriculture. And not just the part about digging dirt, he would learn about hydroponics and aquaculture and all of these animal husbandry and all the different aspects of agriculture. So he could decide which branch he wanted to go to. Nobody told him that, you know. Nobody told him the part about he would get a starter home, a 2-bedroom starter home. Nobody told him he would get $20,000 to start his business when he graduates and get his farmer's license. They didn't tell him that part. All they tell him what the PNM want to do. They want to send Ole in the hot sun to go and dig dirt. And he saw it fit to do a TikTok and talk about that. That is how they poison the minds of the young black youth who are today committing the crimes. When you look at the age demographic of the people that the police are arresting for all of these crimes, in the mid-20s, early 30s. When Prasad Bisesa became prime minister in 2010, right, 16 years ago, these folks, when they were teenagers, some of them 10 years old, 9 years old, 15 years old, what interventions did the UNC and the People Partnership make in that 5-year period to ensure that these young people didn't end up where they are today? What did they do? They dismantled everything that the Manning administration had put in place. Right? They came with their own things. And all they offered these young men was, color me orange, so here what, go and find somebody daughter and knock her up. Get her pregnant, but don't worry, we will help you to mind the child. We'll give you $500 a month to buy milk and pampers. So you okay. You go and spread your seed all over the place. Don't care about the consequences. Have a program for that. Okay? You're looking for work, you could paint. Come, you're paint. You're going on Nelson Street and Duncan Street. You see them old buildings that should have been torn down years ago to make way for new accommodation for the people who live in there. The PNM wanted to do that, but nah. But we tell all you, don't take that chain up because they just want to move you all out, break down the buildings, and put up high rises for the 1%. If they insist, make sure you don't get they don't give you less than $1 million for your apartment. To hell with the fact that you own years rent. Don't study that. Come and pay in the buildings for 3 months. Come to Hilton Hotel, hands up, out, down. Treat you like a little child. That's what they did. PNM came back into office, created a ministry specific for the young people, created programs to keep them out of a life of crime. But not just that, to give them a fighting chance, to start their own business and to write their own paycheck. They come back into office and mash up that ministry, get rid of it completely. And now youth development has gone back to being a subset of the Ministry of Sport, where it seems the primary focus is on the sport aspect, but not on the youth development aspect, because you shut down MyLat, MyPart, you shut down CCC, all these things, and tell us, no, we shut it down. It's just temporarily. Yeah, temporary. But how long is temporary? 2 years, 3.5 years? What is going on with the apprenticeship center that the PNM is building? Well, not building. Shagaramas, the former convention center that the People's Partnership had leased out for some 10 million and so on. PNM came back into office, they took it back, canceled the lease and took it back and decided to turn it into a youth apprenticeship center for the young people to come and learn a trade and learn other things there. What is going on with that? Anybody can tell me? That's probably under review. Just like all the other projects, infrastructure projects that they came and met. Complained for 10 years about how they built 106 schools and how many of the schools the PNM refused to open because the UNC did it. But come into office now, half of the project or more of the infrastructural projects, they stop. Money spent. These are things that were supposed to benefit the population. Where the critics? You know why I vex with the PNM supporters? Because I ain't hearing PNM supporters complaining about that. Like how the UNC supporters for 10 years complained about the Kuva Children's Hospital and they refused to open it and they wicked and they didn't open the campus in Debe because it's south. And as Kamla said, and you see, coming back to the same thing, when this clown David Welch wants to talk about PNM promoting racial division and race war, you all remember what was Kamla's excuse to her supporters as to why the PNM didn't want to open the campus in Debe? I remember they had a public meeting at the Rio Claro Secondary School, and she said it. The reason why they didn't open the campus in Debe and the Kuva Hospital is because they perceive South to be Indian. She said that at that meeting. The PNM perceived South to be Indian, and that is why they didn't open it. But they want to accuse the PNM of blowing the racial dog whistle, when she knows for a fact it had nothing to do with that. Today, they make a big thing about the Kuva Hospital. Oh, I would put us in office and we will open back the Kuva Hospital. Is it open? Partially open. They can't find staff, nurses, doctors, because the nurses packing up the Jahaji bundle and going overseas to the UK where they're getting better pay, better conditions, going to the United States. Now the Minister of Health, who a few months ago said, no, when we raised the question in the Parliament, there is no crisis in the health sector. Everything good. Everything good. But today now you're making a plea and begging the nurses to come back home. Why? If you have enough nurses here, why you want them to come back? But for the very same reason, 15 months stay in office, and the Kuva Children's Hospital still isn't fully operationalized. Because you can't find staff, technical staff to operate the machines. These people have to be trained and so on. You have to find money to pay them. You also have to find money to pay the nurses and the doctors. And the only doctors that are available to you are those who just come out of university. So they don't have the requisite training to fully function. So the hospital in limp mode. And we could do little things, a little surgery and so on. But to say a fully operational hospital, we can't give you that. For the same reasons that the PNM was telling the population we couldn't do it. And they said the lie is just because, according to the mistress of the mask, is because the PNM perceives South to be Indian. That's why they didn't open it. 15 months later, they only go and chirrup the campus in Debe. Chirrup. Yeah? What happening with that? Yeah, it's because the PNM perceives South to be Indian. Nothing else. Yeah, but we promoting race. And we pushing the race card. At no point in time in the last 15 months have you ever heard anybody in the PNM say the reason why Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the UNC government has not, they put that project, the ministry of, that is supposed to be the head office of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Nobody in the PNM has said the reason why they haven't completed it or they put it on hold is because they perceive the North to be African. Nobody said that. And we have not of that view. Nobody has said the reason why they abandoned what was supposed to be the home for the socially displaced at the start, just as they enter in City Gate there, that big building that just abandoned. Nobody from the PNM has said, well, the reason why they abandoned, the UNC abandoned that is because they perceive north of Trinidad or West Trinidad to be African or non-East India. Nobody has said that. But we promoting, they love to say that we promoting race. And we blowing the racial dog whistle. But when their leader, that was the only excuse she could come up with to tell them why the PNM didn't complete some projects in South and Central, they run with that. Nobody said that she was blowing the racial dog whistle. But this clown David Welch wants to come now to talk rubbish about PNM trying to push a race war. That is their go-to card. And that is why they leaked that with that audio clip, because they knew the supporters would have latched on to that part where Star attacked the leader and she used that term. And oh boy, they went to town on it and still going to town on it. We see them for what they are, fake. So to touch on this last point here, in the interest of time, where is it? Right. Story by Shaliza Hassan Ali. I believe she's in the Guardian. Dated the 2nd of August, today, 2026. In the first quarter of 2026, January to March, close to 6,000 people lost their jobs. Close to 6,000 people lost their jobs in one quarter, in 3 months. Not a year, 3 months. What is the significance of that? I remind you that when Minister Taxku read the budget in October last year, he made mention, come to tell you how much people lost their work under the PNM, and but people are just losing jobs under the PNM, and the economy mash up, and the PNM crippled the economy, crashed the economy. He said under the 10 years of PNM, 70,600 people lost their jobs over 10 years under the PNM. Let me repeat that figure. 70,600 people lost their jobs over the 10 years of PNM. He said that. A couple months later, when Kareem Marcel brought the private motion talking about the state of the country and the impact it was having on the people who were suffering, single mothers and all of the people who lost their work, Barry Padarath came and he quoted for us CSO statistics and told us for the 10 years, the decade that they love to talk about, the last 10 years and the last 10 years under the PNM. He said 64,500 people lost their jobs under the PNM over 10 years. Divide 64,500 by 10. Right? So you're getting just over 6,000 people per year lost their jobs. 450 or so, right? Lost their jobs annually. Works out about 500 and something people a month. So what it took the PNM a whole year to do, based on this CSO report, it took the UNC 1 quarter to do. In 3 months, 6,000 people lost their job. 6,000. Let that marinate for a minute. Under the PNM, it took the PNM a whole year, 12 months to achieve that. They did it in 1 quarter. Where is the uproar? This is the party that came into office promising to create 55,000 jobs. Last year, October or November, they launched their national recruitment drive. They tell you they have 20,000 plus vacancies in the public service. Just come and apply. For here, we have all kind of work. Apply and you will get through. 20,000 plus. They got over 110,000 applications. How many of those vacancies have been filled? How many of you who applied, you're still waiting for some kind of response? You submitted online and then you went down to Couva by the velodrome in Couva, wherever it is, to sign up hard copy documents to make sure you submit twice. And up to now, you haven't had a response. But the hypocrites in the UN say, oh, under the PNM, people losing their jobs, people suffering. Rowley is an oppressor, the PNM is an oppressor, Rowley is a dictator. People can't afford to put food on the table. 6,000 a year. Now we're getting 6,000 in 3 months. And the hypocrites and say nothing. Right? But he's come and play himself in the parliament, as I said, on the 18th of June. Tanku, repeating that several of them, 8,000 jobs created in the last quarter of 2025. And the PNM couldn't do one. It is the latest data on the country's labor force survey available on the CSO's website, which is responsible for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating official statistics. The CSO falls under the purview of the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs, and Development. An examination of CSO statistics showed that in the 4th quarter of 2025, October to December, 569,900 persons were gainfully employed. However, by the 1st quarter of 2026, that figure had dropped to 564,000, showing a decrease of 5,900 jobs. In quarter 1, 2026, the estimated average number of persons with jobs for all sectors was 564,000. Compared to the 4th quarter of 2025, the overall employment across all industries decreased by 1%, CSO stated. The decline follows the Prime Minister's boast in April of this year that over 15,000 jobs had been created since being voted into office in 16 months ago. 15, but who's counting? A review of the CSO's data showed that in the last quarter of 2025, the total unemployed figure was 25,700. How they arrive at that, I don't know, which grew to 31,900 in the 1st quarter of 2026. With 6,200 more people becoming jobless, the unemployment rate increased by 24.1%. The data also showed that in the last quarter of 2025, the number of people without jobs and seeking work was 21,300. And by the first quarter of 2026, CSO reported there were 27,100 unemployed individuals, which reflected an increase of 5,800 people, or 27.2% more people were hunting for work on the market. A year-on-year comparison revealed that the average number of persons without jobs and seeking work increased by 5%, the CSO pointed out. However, this figure remained unchanged in the first quarter of 2026. No, the statistics reveal that the number of other unemployed individuals stood at 4,500. In the fourth quarter of 2025, CSO reported the unemployment rate was 4.3%, which climbed to 5.4% in the first quarter of 2026, marking an increase of 1.1%. Some of the terminations, many of the job losses occurred in January following the closure of several bars. Here it is. The closure of several bars, restaurants, a nitrogen plant, a daily newspaper, a cinema, a melamine plant, an ice cream outlet, a household goods store, and an aggregate company. Not all the job losses, but many of them. What do most of these have in common? They were impacted by measures, policies that were announced by this wicked and evil government in October last year. Tanku's first budget, that they dubbed the people's budget. Why? Because they gave you all a $1 reduction in the price of super. So yes, great, applaud that. And that's all the supporters needed to hear, and they run out in the street. Yes, big celebration. Break out the champagne and the wine and bring out the punching. Tanku gave us a $1 reduction in the price of super. The PNM never do that. The wicked Duen from Maraval gave us 6 increases in the cost of fuel. You say he increased it once, twice, and only a riot yet, so he'll increase it a third time. But look at what Dave did in his first budget. Gave us a $1 reduction, nothing else of substance. He increased everything else, and as a result of that, the majority of job losses that took place, or many, took place in January following closure of bars, several bars, restaurants, a nitrogen plant, a daily newspaper, a cinema, a melamine plant, ice cream outlet, household goods store, aggregate company. With more to come. And this is the first quarter. We know there were other businesses that shut down in the second quarter, whose figures are not reported here. So expect to see the unemployment rate go up even further. But again, I stress the point, 6,000 in one quarter. Took the PNM 4 quarters to achieve that. When UNC wins, everybody's supposed to win. A lot of these job losses also are taking place in the ministries. After they come to tell you about how many vacancies there are in the public service, what are they doing? They're making people's positions redundant. They're closing down or shutting down departments in various ministries, doing all kind of consolidation and so on. Persons whose contracts would have been renewed, legitimately so, just prior to the general election of last year, and telling themselves, well, again, another 3 years, I've been here for 10, so there's another 3. Only to be told, well, hey, what now? No? Yeah, we know you still had another 2 years and a half left, but thanks, but we don't need you anymore. Came into office promising some of these very people who are now without work, took the chain up. They say 10%. Since be working on 2013 salary, we're going to get 10%. But how much is the back pay? Carry the 1, multiply by 4, move that 2 decimal points. Hey, yeah, man. Big back pay. I'm going to buy a car. Put down on a car. Yeah, I'm going to put down on. Yeah. Going on AC the whole house. Paint over the house, change the roof. I'm taking a trip. How long I want to go on a shopping trip to Miami, boy? New York? All the plans they made. 10% plus back pay. They end up at Zokes, 0%. Lost work. Because you take chin up. Dr. Rowley told you all, you could get the 10%, but of course your work. Yeah, Rowley saying he threatening people, he trying to frighten people, fearmonger, and that's what Felicia told earlier. The UNC told you all that fearmonger, and now by Rowley had to go, Rowley wicked and evil, greedy, take 47%, and you only want to give it 4? Well, many of those who got 0% lost work are now struggling to find a new job. Wish they had taken the 4%. Because 4% plus your regular salary, right now, looking plenty better than what you're getting, which is 0. No salary. You have loans to pay, and the bank calling you, and courts calling you, and Island Finance calling you, everybody calling you. The bailiff showing up at your door, embarrassment. I have people too in my constituency, MP, What you could do to help me? Courts calling. This one calling, that one calling. They want to come and we could do MP have a light bill here. It pay 3 cycles and due for disconnection. And I beg and I pay a little thing, but I have no money. MP, what you could do? I can't do anything. I cannot take the government's money and give you to pay a light bill. The little stipend that they give us on a monthly basis to run the office, I can't. There's certain things I may be able to spend a little bit of money on for public outreach, social outreach. But I can't take the people money and give you. Right? Because when the auditors come and they want to know, they figure you're taking the government money and giving people and then to get kickback. I can't do that. So, other than dipping in my own pocket, where we can, when we can, because we have requests coming in all the time for a whole set of things. People coming to see me who on the verge of being evicted. They're 2 months behind on their rent and they want assistance. Who are looking for assistance because the child has to get through to a university, but they need assistance with lodging, right? Accommodation. They want some help with that. They need some help to purchase supplies because the tuition is covered, but the books is not covered, and all of these other fees, they want assistance with that. And when you have multiple people coming, we are not in government. I am not a government minister. I am not earning government minister's salary to say, well, okay, yeah, I can help this one and help that. We could only help so many. And every time I raise this issue, I always have to thank those of you who have been assisting in whatever way that you can. We are, on behalf of the constituents of Malabar Mausika who have benefited from your generosity, we say thank you. So those who have reached out, people came by the office, they drop off textbooks, some of them drop off notebooks, pens, pencils. It will help for us to be able to put something in the school bags that we're trying to get to raise funds for these things as well. But this report does not bode well. This is 6,000 in 1 quarter. So I would not be surprised if when we get the 2nd quarter report, right, which is from April to June, that is see another 6,000 people. So 6,000 in January of this year. Add that to the 11,000 they fired in CPEP, the 4,000 or 4,005 that they fired. Sorry, not hired. Fired from CPEP, fired from forestry. How many ever they fired from URP? The program that the PNM had running in HDC, they fired those people as well. I think it was 2,800 persons lost their jobs there. Those who were not fortunate enough to be social media activists for the UNC to get a nice little $12,000 work, who lost their jobs there as well. And those persons who have lost jobs in the ministries, whose contracts were not renewed and they continue to lose jobs, they come, they send us emails, they send me emails telling me their plight and want me to raise it in the parliament. So the numbers are going up. So PNM in office, 2015 to 2025, September 15 to 2025, April. After 15 months, okay, at 6,000 a year, and half, I'm saying half, no, in the last quarter of the financial year. So 3 quarters, yeah, August, September. No, yeah, 2 months left in the financial year. So 10 months have gone in this financial year, right? So probably we approachable. We guesstimate a conservative figure, maybe about 35,000, 40,000 people have lost their jobs over the course of the last 15 months or so. 11 and 6. So there's 6 confirmed plus 11 from CPEP. That's 17 right there. 4 from forestry. So we know 21. So we know at least 21. So in 15 months, the UNC has been able to accomplish what it would have taken the PNM in excess of 3 years to do in terms of loss of jobs. The UNC has been able to do it in 15 months. It would have taken the PNM 36 plus months to do what they have done in 15. Where are the supporters? Where are the people who was complaining? When they shut down Petrochin, 10,000 people lost their jobs, and the fence line communities and the other communities, and how much people lost their job, and we were hearing 100,000 people lost their work, because when you add the 5,000 from Petrochin and the fence line community and the companies, the contractors who used to provide services for Petrochin and all of them who had to lay off their workers, 100,000 people lost their work and 150,000 people lost their jobs. And then they had to come into parliament and admit it wasn't no 100,000, it wasn't 90,000, it wasn't 80, it wasn't Tanku say 75. Mr. Man, who figures himself to be the deputy prime minister, he says 64,005. But they were the same ones exaggerating and lying to you, the population, and telling 100,000 and 150,000 people lost their jobs under the PNM. And some of you all took that and run with it. And say, me voting, PNM and UNC is the same thing. I'm going to say, well, boy, I go in and vote yes. You see me, I don't like this demerit point system, and Kamala says she go in and get rid of it. I know plenty of people who gave them their vote because of the demerit point system. And today, they have a stack of tickets and trying to raise funds to pay the tickets. And coming to ask me to buy a barbecue ticket and curricule ticket to help them pay your traffic fines. No, I'm not buying none. Take it. You didn't want demerit points. Right now, 2 demerit points and 3 demerit points looking plenty better than $4,000 and $6,000 in traffic fines. Don't depend on me. I not depend on my pocket to encourage you. No. You wanted UNC? You vote UNC for demerit points, you take it. Take it now. Go and ask Kamala to help you to pay. So she could tell you that you're of subpar intelligence and you look for that. Not my money. No support from me. Don't come by me with that at all. My money would be better spent on helping people who really need it. Take your ticket. Get us here. It goes on to say, a list circulating on social media at the end of January 2026 claimed that 30 establishments had shut down due to rising fees, taxes, economic decline, a drop in sales, and rising costs. Among those bars that have closed were Scotchy Bar and Lounge, Livy's Bar, and Raj Bar and Lounge. Restaurants such as Blue Star Diner, Rib Shack, D&D Restaurant, The Bocas, and Papa John's David Branch folded up. Movietown Cinema in Tobago went out of business. Nutrien shut down its nitrogen plant after 45 years of operation, while Proman's Melanin announced a temporary 2-year suspension. After 32 years of publishing, a daily newspaper, Newsday, shut its doors. Dairy Queen's Tunapuna branch has also called it quits. The Home Store Shogunas branch and Ready Mix West Indies Limited also ceased operations. Between April and September 2025, CSO data showed there were 12,000 job losses. Between April and September 2025, 12,000 job losses. This was due to firings of CPEP, URP, National Reforestation and Watershed Rehabilitation Program, Water and Sewerage Authority, and HDC Corporation workers last year. During the government's first anniversary in office, Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar stated that despite the closures of CPEP and URP, more than 15,000 jobs were created across ministries. How many were lost? Following last October's launch of the TNT National Recruitment Drive, Persad-Bissessar promised over 20,000 jobs across various ministries and state enterprises. At the end of its recruitment drive, a total of 110,000 people applied online or in person. Of the 30,000 people who applied for jobs from the government through EmployTT, only 1,801 persons were hired by the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure up to February. But the hypocrites who keep talking about, well, it was for the last 10 years. Where were you for the last 15 months? Where were you? If you want to talk about where were we for the last 10 years, where were you for the last 15 months? All who you want to say they had PIP and they couldn't talk and they like cat took their tongue for 10 years. It took yours for the last 15 months. And all the things that you say about the PNM and Rowley and how they were so bad and wicked, you get 10 times that in the last 15 months and you have nothing to say other than to talk about PNM and PNM and PNM. And when you get cornered and you can't answer HYMC, call your so and so and your mother so and so and this. That's all they could do. Cannot defend the indefensible. Where is Roger Hossain? When he came at this drivel that CSO say 8,000 jobs were created at the end of the last quarter of 2025, and he think that it didn't, and he's firing a CPEP and URP and so on, didn't affect the labor statistics and so on. Where is he now? I wait with bated breath to see if he's going to speak on this matter this week or if he's going to remain mum. All of them in the government who were boasting 8,000 jobs created and so on. Well, Leroy Baptiste, you should have said something by now. But I'm sure we're not going to hear anything from him about this. But budget 2026, 2027 coming up. Let me see if Tanku will quote these figures by then, the CSO statistics, hopefully, because for last quarter should be out by then. Let's see if he will factor that into his budget speech, or if he will try to gloss it over and not make any mention of it. But rest assured, we on the opposition bench will not. We will remember, and we will remind them in case they conveniently forget or they didn't see it. I know they conveniently don't see things when it's not supportive of their foolishness and their narrative. They don't see it, no talk about it. I want to see if the media is going to ask the Prime Minister about this. Since you say 15,000 jobs created across ministries, but look, 6,000 people in a quarter, Madam Prime Minister, 6,000 people who lost their jobs based on this article, based on policies, economic policies of your government. We're just asking. Meanwhile, the woman who has been tipped to be this country's next US ambassador, selected by Up North, while she was undergoing her confirmation hearings a few days ago, spoke to the issue of the continued SOE and the concern of the US government about this continued SOE and the impact that it is having, or the negative impact it is not helping. But we noted that the Prime Minister hasn't had too much to say on that. Coming out of those hearings as well, one of the senators who was cross-examining or interrogating the nominee to be this country's next US ambassador spoke about in his opening commentary about Trinidad and Tobago's contribution to the adventure to capture Nicolas Maduro, and that we played a hand in assisting the US government in bringing that about. Now, of course, the Madam Prime Minister, in attempting to play smart with foolishness, comes out and says, well, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force played no part in that initiative. The man never said the TTDF played any part in that. He said Trinidad and Tobago contributed. We know that we had a radar in Tobago that may have played a role, right? Who knows what else was done? We saw there were trucks driving up and down the road, videos showing big trucks heading down to Chagaramas and heading down to La Romaine and all these things, and people asking, well, what's going on here? So when she tries to play smart with foolishness to say, well, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force played no role. Okay, we take out the TTDF. What role did your government play? What assistance did you offer outside of the Defense Force? What did you facilitate to enable them to be able to bring about that end with respect to Mr. Maduro? Give us the full scope. Don't give us half the story and chinks with the rest. We want the whole story, madam. You can't be half pregnant. Land the plane. Come, land the plane. Tell us. Okay, so you said the TTDF didn't play any role. What about the other agencies? What about the government directly? Tell us about that. We're not stupid. We're not buying that foolishness that you came with either. Right? So that whole few minutes, that confirmation hearing didn't do the UNC any favors. In fact, the Prime Minister, she was looking at it, was probably cringing at every interval. Oh God, they just say that. Oh God, how we can say that? Oh God, she just said that. Oh gosh. Bring my phone there for me. Turn it off. Turn it off, because I know the media going to answer that set of question. Turn off my phone there for me. All they get, and if they try to call is the phone that you are attempting to reach is currently switched off or out of the service area. She answered no questions today. Switch it off. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first practice to deceive. All we getting from this government is deception. But we take heart in that the most echoed sentiment you hear outside now is, well, how long again before 2030, boy? 2030 can come soon enough. Call the election. Well, we know they ain't calling no election before 2030. These greedy bastards want to get every penny and every cent that they could get. And while some of you are struggling and you don't know how you're paying your bills, you don't know how you're going to send your kids back to school, some of you know that your kids will be going back to school with the same old sneakers that they had for the last 2 years, and you're looking to see if you could buy some crazy glue to stick it. You're the same washed out pants and washed out shirt, and you were hoping that you would have been able to buy at least 2 new shirts for them, and none of these things are going to happen. At least that's how it looks now. Meanwhile, we have ministers who could afford to take their sons to Japan. Whether they paid for it, the Japanese government would have paid for their airfare and so on, and accommodation, and they could afford to pay for this, to have their son accompany them, they could do that. Right? And all the others who right now Parliament is on recess until the second week in September, so who fly out and who go in wherever and so on, yes, they got paid a couple of days ago, their ministerial salary plus their parliamentary salary. Tens of thousands of dollars. What it taken some of you all a whole year to earn, they got that in 1 month. Money meeting money. Nothing wrong with that. It comes with the job. They are ministers. They're entitled, and I not begrudging the people their money. They could do whatever it is that they want to do. But I'm just letting you know, those of you who assisted to put them there, expecting them to make your lives better, and they made it even worse, and then you want to jump down the throat of the PNM to tell us we ain't doing more and we're not vocal enough and we're supposed to hit the streets and we should be leading the protests and we should do this and we should do that. Well, we told you all what to do. On April 28th, you all didn't listen to us. When we told you what the consequences of not listening to us would be, you didn't listen to us. We fearmongering, we trying to cause Kuchura and Bacchanal. No, you all didn't listen. They in office, and the very things that we told you they would do, they're doing it and even worse and more. And now you all have vexed with us and find we should do more to put pressure on them. To achieve what outcome? For the Prime Minister to come and say the same kind of things? That when you go to school and you don't pass your exams, that the only jobs you could get are low-paying jobs, and or you could become a PNM MP. You all didn't even give us a decent, how I should put it, right? You all didn't even give us a decent representation to say, well, all right, whole 18 seats now, whole 19 seats now. We'll give the UNC a chance, but we don't want such a wide margin to give you all even more work to do to get back there in 2030. Well, they hand us 13 seats and we get that by the skin of our teeth. Had to scrape through. Allow them to be able to hold, to call for recounts in my constituency, Marvin constituency, San Fernando East. Of all San Fernando East, you all took 2 PNM strongholds, Labre and Point Fortin, and hand it to them on a platter. And hand us 13 seats and tell us work from there. 2010, Ole give us 12 and tell us work from there. We worked from there and we come back. But still, you all didn't give us the kind of mandate that you give them. They had 28 seats. You all gave us 23. Slim majority. So the kind of things that they could do, we couldn't do. Kamla could come in the parliament and say to us, we will pass laws with or without your help, and we don't need your help. We in charge. Wine on all here. But all vexed with us. We're doing the best that we could with 13. But we say, oh, look at that, do a little better, give you 18 now. That way we just had to try and get 3 more. But no, we had to get minimum 8. Minimum 8. And still for all, we had to be begging someone to come out to the public meetings. Yeah, we there in spirit, don't worry. We watching online. And then the UNC passing, and they come out with their camera and their phone and taking pictures. They say, the PNM had a wake. The PNM had a funeral. But for those of you who join online, at least you can say, well, we got a viewership of 20,000, 25,000. We could see that. Local government election coming up in just about 1 year. Hopefully some of you all will right the wrongs of April last year. At least send a message, because we see in similarities 2010 to 2015. They came in 2010, remember 2013 local government election, they got a licking. They had local government election in July of 2010. They won 11 seats and the PNM had 3. They won 11 corporations, we had 3. 2013, 3 years later, we were able to flip the script. They ended up with, I think it was 6 and we had 8. And since then, it's been 7, 7, 7. So you have an opportunity next year to repeat that. Send the first salvo and let them know we will remember. Right? Give us back Granby. Because what's Sturge doing up there for you? When last all you see it? I see you do a video the other day, stand up by a canal to tell all about the work that the Ministry of Works doing, doing in dredging drains and rivers up on his side. When was the last time you all saw him before that? Now they hand them that corporation and the seat. Oh gosh, give us back the corporation so at least we could do something now. We could do some work up on that side. You still have to wait until 2030 for central government. Well, let me start with the local now. All right, we know they're gunning for Tunapuna Piako. Make sure not a damn seat for them. But we know that ain't going to happen because UNC faithful Kamala could do them what she want and they will still come out and vote. So, but do something now. What other corporation we have that? Well, we know we can't get sugar on us, but give us Separia. Right now, we're in control of Separia. All right? Interestingly, that is the Prime Minister's constituency, but we in control there now by virtue of all that has happened, and we're saying you could give us that constituency. Right? We'll settle for 9. Let them, but send a message. Okay? Because we don't really see things getting any better right now. With that earthquake that took place in Venezuela, nothing happening in terms of discussions with respect to energy sector, unless Shell plowing through, but to do that thing with Dragon and so on. But we know the dynamics have changed, and so what we were going to get from the agreement that Stuart Young and Keith Rowley had worked up, we will not be getting that under what the UNC has negotiated. They negotiate nothing. It's Shell and Venezuela, right? So we will just get a little cacada, a little something from the Atlantic LNG plant based on our shareholding, and maybe a little something else, but nothing much. Okay? So, for those of you who more than likely going to continue to lose your jobs because this government has no money. They owe everybody and their father. Only borrowing money. 1 billion US by 750 million US, 800 million US. And the supporters ain't complaining. But they had a problem and the PNM did it. 500 million taken from HSF. Supporters have no problem with that. What if you leave HSF there for? To look at it? Yeah, but when the PNM was in power for 10 years, that's what was there for. You already didn't want them to withdraw money for COVID. But now it's okay. Every Monday morning, tax school could go and take out some and it's all right. Because the PNM left the economy in a mess. The PNM left the treasury empty and they're buying that nonsense. I tell you. Fully done. Let's see. Folks, it was nice. I saw a guy, I don't know where. That's not good. Let's see this here. I saved so many things on Facebook. That's all. I saw a TikTok with a guy, and this is the thing that some UNC supporters should just keep quiet. This man do a whole TikTok, right? Talking about how it was the PNM that gave the lease to John Aboud to build Five Islands Water Park, and how the PNM take away the beach down on that side, and it had something, some Shagville, some beach, some name he call it, right? And the wicked PNM in the back pocket of the 1%, and it was the PNM who, I say, this man is an idiot. He has to be fully done. You want to blame the PNM, and you see, when you read the comments, yeah, that's how the PNM stuff. Massa, they only want to do things for the 1% and Massa, and they care about black people, and only licks for the PNM. And I'm saying, I cannot believe all these people either have short memory or they're just dumb. Keith Rowley walked from Chagaramas with Jack Warner, with Ansel Roger, with David Mohammed, and a whole set of other people. Walked from Chagaramas to the waterfront where the parliament was at the time to protest that very lease and others. Keith Rowley did that, right? Keith Rowley would have protested when it is the lease was given for the construction of that water park and the monthly rent was $3,400, which I think it still might be, despite the fact that the PNM took it to court. But we know how the court system works in this country. The PNM protested that. The ILP protested that. That was done under the People's Partnership when they were just giving away lands in Chagaramas. But this clown who's supporting the UNC come and do a whole TikTok to blame the PNM for that. Would they give away the land and the thing and take away the beach from the poor people and Pandey Bella a boardwalk and Kamla Bella boardwalk and the PNM come and the thing and they give one set of garbage. And I say, nah, boy. And reading the comments, there were a few people who told them, hey, dummy, It was the UNC that did that. The People's Partnership did that, not the PNM. But they still have people want to come and fight them and go in and do Google search and Google AI search to come and tell you all kind of thing and say the PNM did that. So another one, Arasta one the other day talking about the PNM sell the pitch lake to the Chinese. Seriously, pal? The PNM sold the pitch lake to the Chinese. Even Philip Alexander the other day talking that nonsense. Did I live and talking that stupidness about the PNM sell the pitch lake to the... You cannot sell the pitch lake. You cannot lease the pitch lake. The pitch lake is a natural heritage site. You cannot. That is like saying the PNM sell the Red House to the Chinese or they sold Whitehall to the Chinese. You cannot do it. It is a heritage site. No government could do that. The only transaction you would ever see between the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the Chinese was back in 2013 when they had some 3-year agreement that Lake Asphalt would provide pitch to the Chinese government. Where they get this thing from that the PNM lease and PNM sell the pitch lake, I don't know. But they come in on social media and talking this thing as if it's gospel. Do have a shred of evidence, but you know what? The handlers tell them that. They're not bothering to research. They hear it, people repeating it, and they run with it. But we have work to do with respect to our social media because clearly it have things outside there that we need to fix. We need to clean up. And the idiocy that exists outside there is too much. You think the UNC alone is bad? No. Misinformation is worse. And when you have a minister of government, a man who collecting tens of thousands of dollars a month, could do a live and talk that stupidness. And they say, well, if it comes from the minister mouth, he must know because he there. It just goes to show you the level of or the lack of intelligence that exists in the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And so all he could do now is jump in van, jump in Prado, and run all over the country and go into HDC sites and threatening people and telling them shut down this and shut down that and evicting people as if there is not a process to be followed. No due process. He just come, bring the camera, you own this. This mechanic shop is yours. This is you. All right. This garage is yours. Well, you have until Friday to shut it down, right? Or else we're gonna come back here and we will do it and plain big tanto thing, you know, walking like a penguin. Basically, like in his 3rd trimester. Where you ever see that? But going in all of these housing developments and hoping to make the PNM look bad. Oh, the PNM, how much you're paying in rent and you're complaining? In other words, your rent small, so don't complain if the garbage not getting collected. Don't complain if the grass high. Hush your mouth. You're paying small rent. Don't make us evict you. And he collecting taxpayers' money every month for that. But the only Prado he could jump in is the ministry Prado. Meanwhile, his is well hidden somewhere and he can't drive it. Why? Because he went in Imbert and Imbert just waiting for him to take it. All the mouth he have. Pull up by the president's house in a little small car. Stupid. Who is this? Chris Sima was saying they got it from UNC propaganda machine. That's right. The most dangerous action committed is a dunce with access to the internet. I agree. I wholly agree. Lovely what they're saying, dog in a suit. Idiocy can be used for good and bad. So true. So true. But PNM supporters, you all need to be a little more vocal, please. All right? Understand? Now that they have, the president has finally fully proclaimed the civil asset forfeiture legislation, which is the Explain Your Wealth legislation, which is what they're using to come after the PNM and come for Balize House, which Rudal Munilal says they want to turn into a home for vagrants because Balize House was always a place for vagrants. And yeah, statements like that. I just have, when I read what was proffered to the court by the police and some of the things that they cited, right? So they say, well, here what now? They talk about contractors who get contract and their bid for the contract was bigger, was higher than other people who had experience. And I just want to read this last thing before I go, right? I want to remind the police officers, since you're all about fighting white-collar crime, and you all want to approach the court based on suspicion because you just passed by Balize House and you watch it, and all of a sudden police turn QS, right? Quantity surveyor. They do so, and they think so. They hold out their thumb, right? And they spit in the wind, and they hold up their fingers so and all of this, and they say, that's 50 million by so, all right? Pull out calculator, right? Move the decimal point 2 places, move it back so, multiply by 6, right? And that's 150 million. Apparently, that's how they're doing it. I just want to ask you all the same way that you all want to know where Balize House and where the PNM get money to build that, and you want to use Explain Your Wealth. Mr. Padarath, the current Minister of Public Utilities, has some questions to answer since 2020. And now that the civil asset forfeiture legislation has been proclaimed, right? We are asking that you revisit Call and Mark Basant, and that you, the same procedure, the same process that you followed with respect to the court, and you want to dig up in PNM business. I ask you a question on this, right? And I intend to file an FOI request on the Commissioner of Police to find out whether or not this investigation is going on and what is the status of it. And it says, let me get this here. And I'm reading from this article, Padarath and relative face financial probes. This is since 2020. Guardian Media obtained copies of checks, detailed cabinet notes, and other financial information which we are reliably informed by the Center of the Police Probe. Officers have obtained several legal orders over the last few months to pursue several bank accounts or to peruse several bank accounts in the ongoing case after alleged suspicious activities related to the MP's relatives were first flagged by the FIU. It goes on. Documents show that Padarath deposited close to $703,000 from his RBC Financial bank account on the 7th of March 2016 to the relatives' account. 700,000 plus, right? This man was just toting purse, handbag, but he has $700,000 plus in his bank account to put in mommy account. Also at the same bank via an account to account transfer of funds. The complex financial trail then points to the relative setting up several other bank accounts, including 2 checking accounts for her company. According to the financial information obtained over the years, Padarath allegedly made several check payments to the relative amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, she transferred these funds into insurance policies and to her company. Investigators found that the relative's company was first registered on January 28, 2011. After they came into office in 2010. So for years, mommy had no desire to open a company, no desire to start a business. But as soon as the People's Partnership came in and her son, Totin Kamla Purse, the Prime Minister's handbag, all of a sudden, mommy wake up one morning and say, Barry, I think I want to open a business. Yes, in my twilight years, I decided I want to open a business. I have no experience whatsoever, but I just want to open a business. What kind of business? Well, all right, we will continue. Investigators found that the relative's company was first registered on January 28, 2011 and had the address of 20 Greenheart Drive, Couva, which was the home address of both Padarath and the relative in question. Documentation also revealed that for the period January 15, 2014 to January 26, 2017, the sum of $162,500 was allegedly paid to Padarath via checks from the relative's company. There were 3 checks, one for $50,000, one for $10,000, one for $2,500 during that period, all paid on different dates for the 3-year period. When questioned about the payment, Padarath smiled and said, "My only comment to you is that I am an only child, and if you look at the date on those checks, it was my birthday, and I am totally above board, and there is a clear attempt to sully my name." So like the Queen of England, the former Queen of England, the late Queen Elizabeth, he's celebrating birthdays on different days. A money trail tracked by authorities revealed that during the period 2013 to 18, just over $15 million passed through the accounts of the relative's company. $15 million in 5 years. Incidentally, under the People's Partnership government, the company obtained contracts from the Education Facilities Company Limited, EFCL. Remember, that's the company that had the contract mill, the room in the back, where 3 fellas were backdating contracts. and Palo Seco Agricultural Enterprises Limited, PSAEL, in the sum of $3.2 million between 2012 and 2015. Wow, boy, Paddy, you're a lucky guy. Lucky guy. Okay. Documents obtained by investigators reveal that the relatives' company secured 9 contracts through the PSAEL during the period April 2012 to 2015. Mommy never opened her business. Had no experience, but all of a sudden she had an epiphany in 2011, is it? The angel of the Lord appeared unto her and said, open a business. You will do well. They discovered that the contract was granted to the relatives. Right. So it says here, they also discovered that in January 2011, same month that the company was registered, same month, Rentokil Initial Limited tenders a bid to furnish, install, and service soap dispensers at the Petrotrin offices in Pointe-à-Pitre after there was an invitation to tender by PSAEL. They discovered that the contract was granted to the relatives' company, notwithstanding Rentokil Initial Limited, which had the ability to perform a similar task, tendered at a much lower quote. So Mommy registered a business in January 2011. Mommy tendered for a contract, same month. She tendered more. She put in a higher bid than Rentokil, which has been in business for years and was probably providing the service before. And Mommy get through. Despite the fact that her bid was higher than that of Rentokil, she got through. No experience, new business, no history. But they just look at it and say, yeah, boy, you see this company here? I feel they will do well. Investigators also noted there were 2 instances where, based on the tendering process selection, using the lowest bidder criteria, the service providers recommended were not awarded the contract. Investigators added that Padarat's relatives' company was awarded the contract by the Finance and Tenders Committee, notwithstanding the fact that the bid tendered was double the amount quoted by the other service providers. So Mommy just opened a business. She has no experience in running a business, no history. Mommy probably don't have a website, she has nothing. What she know about that? But she put in a bid that is double that of everybody else, and she get through. She GT. How you just do that? So I wonder if, now that the Explain Your Wealth bill has been fully proclaimed, if the police go in and have a conversation with Mommy again, because you have a new resource that you can use to compel Mommy to provide information. And Sonny Boy too. Okay? The FCL awarded at least 20 contracts to the relatives' company between September 2011 to September 2014. 20 contracts, you know. Mommy, you have all that stuff to do all that work? Wow, you're real good. So you incorporated a company in 2011, and in the space of 3 years, get 20 contracts. And companies that are around donkey years have more staff and experience, have all of the equipment and so on, and can't get through, and you get through, Mommy? I wish I had that kind of luck. In some instances, investigators say they weren't able to see if work was done on some of the schools that the company was given the contract for, and stated that at least 5 projects in one way or the other does not contain the relevant payment information. So while they have all this information 6 years now, and Padarat working free as a bird? Huh? Free to come in the parliament and threaten parliament staff? And all this information? Guardian Media also asked Padarat about a $703,000 payment made to his relative's account and the ongoing police investigation into his salary when he was the Prime Minister's aide, and the inconsistencies in amounts deposited over the period of 2013 to 2017 into his personal account. So they want to know, based on this salary I was getting here, Paddy, how you were able to deposit all this money and this is what your salary was. Padarat gave the following explanation: as I served as an aide, my role and responsibility are to deal with contingencies when the Prime Minister travels. Every Prime Minister is provided with a per diem when you travel and placed in a check in your name, and that is where those sums would have come from. Okay. Let's see here. Guardian Media obtained cabinet notes for the period 2013 to 15, where investigators perused all authorized travel for Padarat, which included the amounts for travel and the vote from which the money was taken. They found that there was no variance to the amounts disbursed as approved by the cabinet to be paid. The investigators concluded that the documents provided by the Office of the Prime Minister was done, and it revealed that there were numerous discrepancies or variances in respect to the amounts paid to Padarat when compared to the amounts which were approved in the cabinet notes. Investigators allege Padarat earned way in excess of his eligible remuneration during his tenure as a personal aide to the Prime Minister. When questioned about the variances pointed out by the police, Padarat shot back, stating that will be an issue that would have to be dealt with by the authorities in terms of cross-checking with the Office of the Prime Minister. But as I indicated when I left the Office of Prime Minister, every single travel was accounted for. Asked if he would be willing to cooperate with the authorities should they approach him, Padarat said, "These matters are in the hands of my attorneys and it will be dealt with by my attorneys. I am not saying anything further. Let them do their homework." Well, Commissioner Guevara, please let us know if you all have done your homework. Now that the law is in place fully, the same yardstick you want to use for the PNM, please extend it to Minister Padarat, perhaps Minister David Lee, and any others who might have questions to answer. Right? Well, even not there for now. The hole you dig in, you might fall in it. Correct. So true. David McIntyre said, Mommy was running she owned live sport people with no equipment and no track record getting big contracts. Well said, David. PF Cutters is saying, how about you ask Philip Watts who got almost 20 million of what Foster allegedly got, according to Mark Bassat in the Express, to find out? Good question. Precious is saying, check Monilal and Enel, those thieves, plus the murder of Dana, real live sport. Yeah, well, the 8 million, the extra 8 million, and it was claimed that a certain minister got a piece of. I hope that Commissioner Guevara and his men will also be applying the Civil Asset Forfeiture Bill, that legislation, not bill anymore, the act, to these folks as well. Let me do a wide sweep now. Okay? We're just asking. Who owns the large house in Gulfview? Kishan Ali is saying PNM can't fool we black people again. No, Kishan, now the UNC fooling you all. And you're happy. You say, Massa, you're here, you're like Oliver Twist. Please, ma'am, can we have some more fooling? Can we have some more fooling? It's like daily. I just open. I hope the PM and the UNC fool us a little more today. You just hear Twiggy say, Mama guy thing, Michelle, Mama guy fool ship. Well, I'm happy to take fool up from the UNC. Were you one of them that lost their jobs, Kishan? Or you didn't lose it yet? Or you never had one? They promised you one and you get it. The PNM had nothing to fool all with. Of course, was that we the black people love Kamala? Well, good for you, because she don't love you. I can tell you that. 6,000 of y'all lost your jobs in the first quarter of this year, Kishan. That is love. PNM never do all of that. 6,000 in a quarter, PNM, the same PNM you don't like, and who fool all your black people, never do black people that. Kamala fire caused 6,000 of them to get fired in one quarter. But you ain't talking about that. Oh boy. Kishan say PNM destroyed Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, Kishan. If you say so. Same Trinidad and Tobago that you're living in now? The UNC fix it? I'm just asking. For the 8 months of the year, and for 7 out of 8 months you've been under state of emergency. But 6 out of 7, we just started the 8th month. PNM did that? No, PNM didn't do that. But say what? That's your position. PNM destroyed Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, next time you jump on the ferry, tell yourself that. I want you to tell me which one of the ferries Kamala bought or the UNC purchased. Just tell me anyone, just one. PNM destroyed. When it is the Piarco, not Piarco, the Crown Point new terminal is open and you decide to take a flight and go to Tobago and you land up there, all right? I want you to walk through it and tell me what part of that the UNC built or anybody else built. The PNM didn't do that. PNM does mash up thing. They destroy. I was going over the Lady Young the other day. I reached by the lookout and I watched on a seaport of Spain, looking at the skyline and so. Couldn't find a single building that the UNC built. Everything there was PNM. Everything that was not private sector, PNM built. You say the PNM destroying. Let me just take Brian and go my way. Brian.
MP Romain, good afternoon.
Greetings.
MP Romain, I'm sorry to disappoint you, and good evening to your callers and listeners. MP Romain, I'm sorry to disappoint you, sir, but some of your figures are wrong.
Tell me.
It's not 6,000, MP Romain, because I'll tell you why. Something happened. I called certain people,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, a long time I haven't spoken to you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I called their mother, who I know, and they happened to be there by the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how are you going? She said, well, not good. I said, why? She said, well, I lost my government contract.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, but I've gone back to school. She has a degree in tourism and she's doing her master's in something else now. And she had a job as she was under contract. Right? But she had just happened to be busy. And she told that there are hundreds, if not thousands of colleagues
Mm-hmm.
who have lost their jobs under contract. So all that you have explained with the 6,000, add a couple thousand more to that.
Yes.
That those who are under contract, as well as places that could be closed down, parts of departments and so on, where they believe they don't need certain people.
Mm-hmm.
They have been removed, closed down, and many of them, where they have no need for them at this point in time. And their contracts shortened, and that's the end of that. No job. Sent home. So a lot of people, and it's not only, and you figure some of your figures were correct, kind of correct, because the bars, when you go to the bars and these other little minor institutions that would have two people, they're no longer hiring the people. In a particular bar used to have one or two or three Venezuelans.
Yes.
Only have one now. They're letting go people because they can't afford to keep them.
Yep.
There are a lot of people have lost it, but you see, they can't jump on a phone and talk and say anything because many of them, they came through the back door to come to Trinidad, some of them, trying their best to see what they could do. Some of them have kids and they don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It is difficult for people in this country at this point in time, but many of them not saying anything. It is, especially in South, you would swear that nothing is happening. I have a friend who has a particular store in Gebe Penal and is telling me for the entire week, if they made $105, they made plenty money.
Oh, Lord.
And things are bad and they have rent to pay. Things are extremely bad. I'm talking about Gebe Penal. You would swear that what's going on in these constituencies, even in Siparia, things are bad. Businesses are closing down, smaller businesses. Not the big ones, the big ones who are trying to stay afloat, but the smaller ones, they can't.
Yeah.
Because many of them leasing, they're renting, and some of them have to letting go people piece by piece, employees. And we warned the people about this, we told them, Stuart Young put it up in Tandy Grande before the election and showed them what happened. Dr. Rowley said it. But the UNC made sure they pay themselves their back pay. Full money, full cash.
100%.
And telling people, when they go take food card and take gas, or we're going to tell you with all your mortgages. No money for all you. Port of Spring City Corporation workers. I listened to the union leader talking on their behalf. Vex on the news talking about what the money is already. You all made provisions for it in the media review. Where's the money for 1,300 workers? 1,300. The POPs workers, the MPOPs workers can get 1,600 people. I'm talking about the clerical error for 1,600 people. And you're paying hundreds of thousands every month then? With no clerical error, but for that 1,600 people, they have a clerical error.
Correct.
And they can't get them all the money. And people going ahead with that. And the government making changes to some parts of the constitution so they could get San Fernando for the next local government election. Because they want a city. That is talking South. We want a city. We can't get police so we could take San Fernando and you hope we could get it. And if I tell you why they want to do that, if I tell you why, but I'm going to tell people because you can't hold back things anymore.
Right.
You see how they changed? When you in Oxford Street today?
Kwame Ture.
If you could be the name of certain streets in San Fernando, if they get it. It coming. You understand? That's what they want to do. Because absolutely nothing else is going on in San Fernando. But if they could do that and change some of the names, the certain names that some of you all may very well find rather strange. Don't say I didn't tell all you. Don't say I didn't tell all you. But they want the city. Why didn't do it in Superior? Why didn't do it in Debe Pinal? They want a city. They want the city of San Fernando. And there are many other things we know. Kamala Harris wasn't too concerned about what transpired in yesterday for Emancipation Day. You know why? Because she's in charge of the Treasury. She don't have to worry about that. She will fix that down the road. When they want to cost me, I will fix all you down the road. So no need to get to fuss and fight. She will do what she has to do because you will get up one morning and realize something else is happening. And that is how they are moving in Trinidad and Tobago. Absolutely nothing is being done to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago have to realize this and understand. Don't be lazy. When time to vote, get up and vote. And carry your entire family. Because as we told you all, that is the assignment. That is the only way. Because while I agree with you, Dominic, that many of the people in the PNM are doing and saying much, we should not sit down and wait. Get up, and when time to vote, go and vote. It is the only way to send a message. Don't wait for general election. Do it for starting local. We need to do what we have to do. Otherwise, at the end of the day, we will end up with absolutely nothing. And they will end up. Look at Stanford. I keep talking about South of the Caroni Bridge. Look at the color. Look at the color. We have to fight. Not just north of the Caroni, not the east-west corridor alone. You have to fight for all those seats that were normally ours. Normally. Because even though we lost .14, they still only get $0.14, $5 million. Why do you think that was? Huh? Because, as I told you all a couple years ago, when they look at me, what do they see? The win, .14, but they didn't get them a bump up like Shagonas. 5 grand. The mind be with DC. Take 5 grand and cool it. Why you feel that is? You have to be good, don't be fooled. Because at the end of the day, if you believe she love you, okay, you better think again. The money there's a lot more to say what I know you're busy.
Yes, sir.
Have a good weekend and have a good week.
Thank you. Right, so Kishan say, was that PNM? Where is it? It says that PNM supposed to go to Haiti or something, so on week. No need for them to go to Haiti, Kishan. Based on the trajectory that your government is heading down, in about 2 to 3 years' time, we might Trinidad and Tobago might very well become like that. In fact, Haiti would probably look like a vacation for some people. No direction, no ideas, no proper policy. Right. Erica, give you 5 minutes. I don't know. Yes, sir.
Oh, afternoon. Oh gosh, I know it's tuning late here. Good afternoon to you and all the listeners and callers and another segment of Facts of Stubborn Things this Sunday afternoon. Now, I echo the sentiments of Brian, who would have called just now. Now, the reason why they're doing point 14 that, right? And we have to understand something, right? Now, the local election is due next year around this time, right? And the government is trying to suppress and not to give the PNM Health Corporation funding to get certain things done for their budgets and their area and district. So by doing that, they in their mind will think that the budgets will be upset with the party, the PNM party in these PNM controlled corporations, and they will be disenchanted with their budget, with their councillors, aldermen, chairman. So that will give the government an option or opportunity to get into the corridors in the East-West corridor and the PNM, everybody holds that the Tunapuna Piaco, the Samuel Avantil, the Point 14, San Fernando. They're trying hard. But you see, MP, people don't understand something. They always say, once you play fast and loose, as the rightfully say with your vote, these will be the consequences at the end of the day. You understand? Now, you as a prime minister, emancipation was yesterday, right? We had our celebration to end slavery and what have you. You as a prime minister, you will come out and say they're not coming no event in the village. But you can barely walk for Indian rifle, they don't feel that, but you're walking with them though. So it goes to show you that these people are blatant racists and they are showing it clear every single day. Right? Now, I personally believe, this is my opinion, nobody else own, the government is grateful and glad that the opposition leader is there so they can do what the hell they want, and how they want, and when they want. Because I believe the opposition should be a force to reckon with. Anything they do, be on the ball. Now, I heard you said something that now you all know came in and think, I understand that you and Christian and Hans and there's newbies in the political arena. But you see, when you have certain elements that continuously infiltrate the system, it gives you all a disadvantage to really explore and to really deliver. You see, when you have people like Penelope, and want to bring back this one, I bring back Jennifer Batista, I bring back all in not giving the younger generation an opportunity to really gravitate. That's why you rightfully said the young people right now are very disenchanted because they don't have young people there to really give that energy to them. Now, you and hands at them will be there, yes, but they're just a minority. Watch it, the demographics and the people who's running the country is a set of derelicts and geriatrics. If you look at it, you have nobody in the government and opposition besides the one who now come in there that could really take the country forward into politics, because the young people don't get turned off. They get turned off because they're not seeing no avenue. And I am very disappointed in the opposition leader, because she should have at least give you all the opportunity to really get the ball going. But no, you want to play this vindictive thing just like Kamala. And let us stop that kind of that BS, because if we continue, the PNM is going to stay in opposition till 2040. And we don't want that problem. We want them to get out of office. This UNC government, they caused 15 months of problems. So we have to have a strong opposition leader. I must say kudos to the chairman, Marvin. He's on the board. He always there fighting tooth and nail. That is what the leader should be doing, not the chairman. And I'm really, really upset. Marvin is fighting the government day in, day out, day in, day out. What is the opposition leader is doing? I'm yet to see some sort of vigor that coming out of this opposition leader. Marvin is really doing what he could do. Because right now it's 28 against 13. Let me be realistic. I am bashing nobody. This is reality. The opposition leader needs to be more proactive, more get and jam them coming and going. Don't be sit down and thinking no, we need strong opposition in the parliament. This is what the people are looking at right now. Right, but with that being said, I'm real upset how everything playing out and how everything is taking place in this country right now. And we just sit down and we just lean back. If I had it for once be, I would have go there and make real rap, but you know me. You understand? I'm a respectable person. So I don't want to go there and start a big rap and then I get PDO in my backside. You know where it just go?
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Yeah, MP, good program as usual. Love to all listening and yeah, blessings.
Thank you, sir. Right, so stay tuned for the schedule of events for Arima Borough Month. So started this morning with, of course, as I said, the Thanksgiving church service, and there will be a series of events taking place, one of which is supposed to be taking place in the constituency of Malama Mausika, where we will be having a concert that will involve several bands, police band, Defense Force band, couple steel bands from the constituency and so on. So that is tentatively called for the 16th of August. But as plans are finalized, hopefully by the end of this week, I should be able to share further details with you all. So it's a free concert, so just come out and enjoy yourself. So I will let you all know further what is happening with respect to that. I'm seeing someone here saying, just so dry saying, you forgot Rowley did not attend some Diwali celebrations. And I did mention that before. I said that Dr. Rowley, I think, did not attend one of the closing ceremonies for the Diwali Nagar, and the UNC made sure he never forgot about that. All right. So, but even when he was called out on it, he did not respond like this Prime Minister to say, well, I know people want a customer and I know people want to hurl insults and abuse at me, and maybe you might get an opportunity next day or some other time to be able to do that. That was most inappropriate coming from a Prime Minister, right? And again, it suggests that the emancipation event was a PNM thing. Really that day. Let's see here. So old lady saying the old one need the experience of the older, the young ones need the experience of the older ones. Very true. Very true. Right. So you have a mix, and that's what you will get on the PNM bench, a mix of new and experience. Bachelor is saying seismic testing for oil and gas is almost completed. The info of the testing have been leaked, and companies with that info is establishing themselves here before the boom. Okay. All right, Winston, if you say so. Tell us about the refinery now. When that reopening? It's been 15 months. When people were pounding on when Munilal went last year to, or was it earlier on this year when he went to India? He said there were a number of Indian companies that were interested in the reopening of the refinery. What happened to that? He went to Ghana. There were companies interested there, the government of Ghana. What happened to that? Kamala Persad-Bissessar went to the United States. When she went to Doral for the Shield of America Summit, she spoke to the U.S. Secretary of Energy about partnership and reopening the refinery. Or we keep hearing they're talking to this one, talking to that one, talking to everybody. Nothing concrete, nothing definitive. But you come in to tell us about seismic testing and all of that and thing leak. Really? Where was it leaked? Which news outlet reported that? Really goody. And even so, you feel when you discover oil and you discover gas, or what, you just want to take a pipe and stick it in the ground and it's just gonna come up? I think that's it. You know how many gas fields we are now developing that were discovered since the 1980s, and it took the companies decades before they made a final investment decision? You think this is overnight? But get ready, folks. Please. Lovely one said nobody want the refinery. Subasi is asking seismic testing way. You only come to spread this set of propaganda and so on. There's no evidence. This big leak and nobody get it. Come on. Big leak and the government didn't talk about it. Muniyal not beating his chest. Hey, look, oil and gas come in. Right. Okay. Let's see here. Winston does he putting out a set of lies on Facebook. So, folks, I have to leave it there for today, unfortunately, because I have an event to attend and I'm already late. So we will chat again next weekend, God's willing. All right. Yeah. Yes, Claire. I'm heading out. I have an event to attend in Malabar. So we will chat again soon, folks. Next week. Enjoy the rest of the week. Make it a productive one, as I always say. And I'm sure the UNC going to do some shoppiness this week again for us to talk about next week. And never a dull moment in Sweet TNT with the UNC. All right. So it's been nice.